AITA for refusing to share my inheritance with my step-siblings. I 24F recently inherited a significant amount of money from my grandparents. They were very wealthy and doted on me because I was their only biological grandchild. My mom 52F remarried when I was 12, and I gained two step-siblings, Liam 27M and Emma 25F. Growing up, my stepdad 54M and his kids never really saw me as part of their family. My stepdad made it clear from the beginning that his children came first. Liam and Emma would get special treatment, like bigger allowances, more expensive gifts, and exclusive vacations that I wasn't invited to. My mom, bless her heart, tried to blend the families, but her efforts were often undermined. If I ever tried to join in their activities, I was met with cold shoulders or outright exclusion. For instance, I remember one Christmas when I was 14. My stepdad got Liam and Emma brand new laptops while I received a generic book that clearly had little thought behind it. When I expressed my disappointment, my stepdad told me I should be grateful to receive anything at all. My mom, although visibly upset, didn't challenge him in front of the kids. School was another battleground. Whenever I needed help with my homework or wanted to attend extracurricular activities, my stepdad would dismiss it as unnecessary, while he was always hands-on with Liam and Emma's academic and personal pursuits. This resulted in me often feeling unsupported and undervalued. Fast forward to a few months ago, my grandparents passed away, leaving everything to me. I was devastated by their loss, but their will specified that the inheritance was meant solely for me. They were very explicit about this because they wanted me to be secure in life and were aware of how my step-family treated me. When my stepdad found out about the inheritance, he immediately demanded I share it with Liam and Emma. He argued that family shares everything and that they deserved a portion since we've been siblings for over a decade. I refused, stating that it was my grandparents' wishes, and I wanted to honor them. Since then, my stepdad has been calling me selfish and greedy. He even got my mom to try and convince me to share. My mom is torn because she wants to support me but also doesn't want to upset her husband. Liam and Emma have also been pressuring me, saying that I'm tearing the family apart and that I don't care about them. To clarify, my step-siblings' father is quite wealthy himself and has provided well for them. The inheritance is substantial enough to cover my education, potential home, and a safety net for future endeavors. My grandparents were aware of the wealth disparity between me and my step-siblings and still chose to leave everything to me. I feel really conflicted. On one hand, I know my grandparents wanted me to have this money and didn't want it going to my step-family. On the other hand, I don't want to be the cause of more family drama. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to share my inheritance with my step-siblings. Update 1. Thank you all for your feedback and support. I had a long conversation with my mom, and she finally understood my perspective. She admitted that she was pressured by my stepdad, but agrees that my grandparents' wishes should be honored. As for my stepdad, Liam, and Emma, they're still upset, but I've decided to stand firm. I know I'm not the asshole here, and I need to prioritize my own future and respect my grandparents' wishes. Update 2. Things have escalated. My stepdad has threatened legal action, claiming he has a right to a portion of the inheritance for his children. I consulted with a lawyer who confirmed that my grandparents' will is airtight and that my stepdad doesn't have a leg to stand on. Despite this, the tension at home is unbearable. My mom is trying to mediate, but it's clear she's stressed. Liam and Emma have taken to social media, airing out our family drama and painting me as the villain. I've had distant relatives reach out, some supporting me, others urging me to keep the peace by sharing. It's overwhelming. Update 3. My stepdad has started spreading rumors in our community that I manipulated my grandparents into leaving me everything. This has caused a lot of people to question my character, and it's really affecting me. I've even lost a few friends over this. In the meantime, I've moved out of the family home and into an apartment using part of my inheritance. This has only fueled my step-family's anger, but I needed to get away from the toxic environment. My mom visits me frequently, and although she's still in a tough spot, she's been more supportive. Update 4. Final update. After much deliberation, I decided to take a step back and evaluate the impact this drama was having on my mental health. I approached my mom and proposed a family meeting with a mediator. It was a tense meeting, but it allowed everyone to air their grievances in a controlled setting. In the end, I offered a small portion of the inheritance as a goodwill gesture, not because I felt obligated, but to try and mend the fractured relationships. Surprisingly, Liam and Emma rejected it, claiming it was an insult compared to what they deserved. This response solidified my decision to go no contact with my stepdad and step-siblings. My mom has decided to stand by me, and we're working on rebuilding our relationship away from the toxic influence of her husband. I've since started therapy to deal with the emotional toll this has taken on me. I'm focusing on my future and honoring my grandparents' memory by using their gift to build a stable, happy life. Thank you, Reddit, for helping me through this incredibly tough time. Your support and advice have been invaluable. AITA for supporting my wife's decision to leave the bulk of her inheritance to her youngest daughter. I 45M have 3 children, Amy 21F, Ben 19M, and Carly 16F. I married my wife, Sarah 43F, when Amy was 6 and Ben was 4. Carly is our only biological child together. Sarah has always treated Amy and Ben as her own, but their relationship with her has been strained. Sarah comes from a wealthy family, and she inherited a large sum of money when her parents passed away. This money allowed us to live a very comfortable life, including private school education for all 3 kids and frequent vacations. However, Amy and Ben have always resented Sarah for trying to replace their mother, who left when they were very young. Their resentment only grew over time, and they often acted out in rebellious and hurtful ways. Despite Sarah's efforts to bond with them, Amy and Ben made it clear that they would never accept her as a mother figure. Over the years, they have said extremely hurtful things to her, including that they wished she were dead. Sarah has tried to be patient and loving, but it has taken a significant emotional toll on her. Recently, Amy and Ben moved out to attend college, both of them on full scholarships thanks to their academic achievements. Carly, who has always been very close to Sarah, still lives with us and has been thriving in her school and social life. A few months ago, Sarah and I decided to update our wills and set up trusts for our children. Given the way Amy and Ben have treated Sarah over the years, she felt strongly that the bulk of her inheritance should go to Carly, who has always been kind and supportive. We decided to leave Carly 75 of Sarah's inheritance, with Amy and Ben each receiving 12.5. When Amy and Ben found out about this, they were furious. They accused us of favoritism and of trying to buy Carly's love. They also said that Sarah was punishing them for not accepting her as their mother. I tried to explain to them that their treatment of Sarah over the years had influenced her decision, but they wouldn't listen. Amy and Ben have now gone no contact with Sarah and have limited their contact with me. They have posted about the situation on social media, painting Sarah as a vindictive stepmother and me as a spineless enabler. This has led to a lot of our extended family reaching out to us, some supporting our decision, others urging us to change the will to be more fair. Sarah is heartbroken and feels like all her efforts to be a good stepmother have been for nothing. Meanwhile, Carly is caught in the middle, feeling guilty for being the favored child and worried about her relationship with her siblings. I don't know what to do. On one hand, I understand why Sarah made the decision she did, and I want to support her. On the other hand, I don't want to lose my relationship with Amy and Ben. So, Reddit, AITA for supporting my wife's decision to leave the bulk of her inheritance to our youngest daughter. Added for clarity, Amy and Ben's mother left when they were very young, and she has had no contact with them since. Sarah has always tried to be a loving and supportive stepmother, despite their hostility. The inheritance in question is Sarah's, not mine. My assets are being divided equally among all 3 children. Update 1. Thank you all for your feedback and support. I had a long conversation with Sarah and Carly about the situation. Sarah is deeply hurt by Amy and Ben's reaction, but she still stands by her decision. We agreed to seek family therapy in the hope of repairing the relationships. Carly is feeling very conflicted and has reached out to Amy and Ben, but they have not responded. We are hoping that with time, they will be willing to come to the table and talk things out. Update 2. Things have taken a turn for the worse. Amy and Ben have started spreading rumors that Sarah was abusive, which is completely untrue. This has caused even more tension within our extended family and has led to several heated arguments. We have decided to seek legal advice to protect ourselves from these false accusations. Carly is struggling with the added stress and has started seeing a counselor to help her cope. Sarah is devastated and feels like her reputation and efforts as a stepmother have been completely destroyed. Update 3. We have decided to hold a family meeting, with a mediator present to address the issues head-on. Amy and Ben have agreed to attend, but they remain very angry and defensive. The meeting was incredibly tense, with a lot of shouting and tears. Amy accused Sarah of trying to buy Carly's affection with money and gifts, while Ben said that he always felt like an outsider in our family. Sarah explained how much it hurt her to be constantly rejected and mistreated despite all her efforts to be a good stepmother. I reiterated that our decision was not about favoritism, but about acknowledging Carly's support and kindness over the years. In the end, Amy and Ben agreed to stop spreading rumors, but they still refused to change their stance on the inheritance. Sarah and I reiterated that the decision was final, and that we hope they can find it in their hearts to move past this. Update 4. Final update. After much reflection, Sarah and I have decided to stick to our original plan. We know this means that our relationship with Amy and Ben may never fully recover, but we believe it is the right thing to do. Carly is relieved that we are not changing our minds, but is still saddened by the rift in the family. We are continuing with family therapy and hope that, with time, Amy and Ben will come to understand our perspective. In the meantime, we are focusing on creating a loving and supportive environment for Carly and each other. Sarah has decided to write a letter to Amy and Ben, expressing her feelings and hoping to open up a line of communication. We are also planning a small family gathering to celebrate Carly's achievements and to show that we are still a family, despite the current tensions. Thank you, Reddit, for your advice and support during this difficult time. AITA for asking my friend to take down her bachelorette party photos. To start this off, I am a Muslim woman who wears the hijab. I cover my hair and most of my body. I do not judge those who don't do the same, nor do I try to impose my beliefs onto others. Everyone will have their own personal journeys, and just as I know I'm not perfect, I can't judge others for it either. I 23F recently went to a friend's bachelorette party. Women only, no drinks, just girls being girls, and celebrating a friend's soon-to-be marriage. Maya 24F has been a friend of mine since kindergarten, and I'm more than happy to be a part of such a big part of her life. She isn't religious, but she accepts my views and even going to let me wear a more modest style abaya as her maid of honor. This is to say Maya understands the hijab and what it means to me, or so I thought. At the party, I took it off as it was just women. We were going to sleep over anyways, so I don't think anyone was expecting me to sleep in the thing. I always find it funny how they react when they get to see my hair, like I'm secretly Rapunzel or something. We watched a movie, took photos and videos, and generally had a good time. I had no problems with the photos being taken, since my friends are usually respectful and don't post them anywhere. It just stays in our group chat. We went to sleep and the next day everything was normal. We cleaned up and I drove home. Finally checking my phone, I opened Instagram to the tagged icon and checked it to see myself and the girls on Maya's public account. I quickly messaged Maya asking her to take it down before anyone else saw, as I couldn't control whether or not some guy was going to see her post, and she refused, saying that there were no other good photos of her. I asked her to simply crop me out or even draw over my hair and neck, but she said that it would look wrong and that I'm overreacting. I insisted I wasn't and that she knew that I couldn't show my hair to just anyone. Instead of responding to me, she took it to the group chat as some sort of counsel. Half of them agreed that she shouldn't have posted a photo of me without my hijab, and a couple others told me I was overreacting and no one cared besides me. I should note that one of the most vocal of them who disagreed generally doesn't like me, so she would have disagreed regardless of what I said. Most of us are urging her to take down the post, and now she's claiming we're putting her under a lot of stress with the wedding only a week away. But I don't see what that has to do with this. Am I really being unreasonable for wanting to be respected? AITA. Edit. There were about 40 photos and I was only in 6 of them. People are under the impression that I was in every photo taken. I wasn't, yet I was in almost half of which were posted. All of the ones posted were candidates. Update. AITA for asking my friend to take down her bachelorette party photos. I wanted to give it a couple days before I updated to let the situation cool down or hopefully resolve itself. In short, the post got taken down, the wedding is still happening, and I'm still friends with her. I got a bunch of DMs from her fiancé the other day, apologizing, saying that he'd recognized me in the photos of me without my hijab and he'd informed me that he told her to take them down. He's Christian, but from what I understand, his mother veils, and he understands the rules around hijab a good bit. He felt bad and I had to reassure him that it wasn't his fault and thanked him for talking to Maya for me. He asked if this whole situation would affect our friendship, and I told him I wasn't sure in what way. A bit after, Maya finally messaged me one for the first time after the whole fiasco. She apologized and explained she didn't think it was a big deal since her other Muslim friend doesn't wear the hijab and she thought I was simply being dramatic. I told her that everyone is different and what someone else chooses to do with their body and faith doesn't mean someone else will do the same. My older sister doesn't wear the hijab. Maya's seen her. It's a personal choice and no two people are going to have the same relationship with it. I asked her why me asking her to take it down wasn't enough on its own, since she'd done similar things for others in the past. Think bra strap showing, unflattering angle, exposed scars without hesitation. She said she wasn't thinking straight and felt like it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It was only when her fiancé brought it up to her that she took it down. She put the other 4 photos up, the ones without me in them, and she realized that she was being stubborn for no reason. She asked me if there was anything she could do to make up for it, and I asked her to just keep it in the past. I'd like to clear up the notion that this the first bachelorette party or even wedding our friend group has had, since that's far from it. Added, we've had conversations regarding special occasions many times, so even if it was the first time, this shouldn't have happened. This wedding will be the third and come by September, Mine will be the 4th. Also, we've been friends for almost 2 decades, so cutting her off over this would be so out of proportion. I did not report the photos, and I did not abandon my faith like some of you suggested. This may not be the update some were wanting, but at least things are better now and the wedding is soon and going as planned. AITA for blowing up at my wife over my daughter's school picture. Update 17/7/24 here. Throwaway and fake names. I 60M have been married to my wife 51F for around 15 years. We also have a beautiful daughter named Hyung 17F, who is in her junior year of high school. Yesterday after school, Hyun pronounced Hyung came up to me and my wife and showed me her school pictures, both her individual photo and her group grade photo. They were taken all the way back in February, but they had just arrived today. I complimented Hyung and told her how beautiful she looked in the photos, before telling her how proud I was to see her grow up throughout the ages, before showing my wife the pictures of our daughter. It did not go the way I hoped it would go. Instead of looking at it for a bit before saying something, my wife immediately pointed out to Hyun that she was looking too downward at the camera and that her eyes looked strange forced. I was a bit taken aback at first, but I decided to just keep listening. My wife then said to my daughter that she would have to have rehearsals for school pictures with her for next year, because in my wife's words Hyun still doesn't understand how to properly pose, smile and look beautiful for a school picture. I was a bit irritated, but I let it slide. What set me off though, was my wife then said Hyun's picture is a fail. Honestly, Melissa looks the prettiest out of everyone. Hyun got quiet and said I'm gonna be honest, my picture this year is really bad compared to sophomore year. I got mad that evening. We had a huge argument in the living room. I told my wife that she was being cruel to her daughter and since school pictures were over, there was no point being so picky over it. My wife retaliated, saying that even Hyun says that she doesn't like how she looks in her school picture. I was just being honest. I'm only trying to help her. She then went into her room and started crying, saying that I don't understand her. I will admit, I raised my voice while we were having that argument and I'm seriously sitting here questioning myself about whether I was the asshole or not. After our argument, I knocked on Hyun's door and I could tell, by her expression, that she had listened to every piece of the argument. I feel bad because I may have overreacted to something as simple as school pictures. Plus, I ruined my daughter's evening and my wife's too. And I also made my wife cry. So Reddit, AITA, TLDR, I shouted at my wife after she made some comments about my daughter's school photos and I'm wondering if I'm the edit. This is not the first time my wife has said something like this. This is why I feel even more terrible, because I let my daughter suffer like this. I did give my wife a word or two, but I always told Hyung that this was just the way she spoke and that she really did love her. I really want to cry right now, especially overhearing Hyung crying herself to sleep yesterday night. She always kept on a brave face around me and my wife, but it just breaks me even more now knowing she feels like she can't talk to me either. I failed always asked me every morning if she looked beautiful. She would always ask at mealtimes if she was eating too much. I'm so afraid of the damage we both put her through for so long. I'm so scared she's going to develop an eating disorder and I'm going to make sure to set things straight with my wife and take care of my daughter better. She is always my first priority. Edit 2. I was taken off guard even though my wife has made responses like this in the past, because though it's not the first time, I had a little bit of hope left that she wouldn't point out Hyung's appearance that outright in her school photo. Update AITA for blowing up at my wife over my daughter's school picture. Original post here. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their generous comments and advice. As promised, here is the update. After my wife left for work, I decided to check up on my daughter. She was in her room doing homework and I could tell by the forced expression that she was not okay. As she talked, everything began to make sense. My daughter overheard her mother shaming her in front of the other church moms. She heard them boasting about their kids and her mother would use condescending modesty, e.g. she's gained weight and she doesn't even study hard. She was tired of trying to surpass my wife's expectations. She couldn't stand it when my wife was in the house. She asked me why am I her diamond? She cuts me to make me shine. How more of this should I take? I prepared her all the foods I promised to make and she was hesitant but ate a lot more than when my wife was around. She wanted to further talk with me. I then asked if she wanted me to tell my wife how she felt. Hyung said it was the only way to get her to listen, before telling me she wants me to get a divorce. I asked her if she was absolutely sure, as it was something very serious. She said she was fine with it. I'm just devastated it has reached this point. When Hyun was at school, I had a conversation with my wife. I brought up Hyung's concerns, along with mine. I asked my wife what made her put down my daughter on the day of the school picture incident. She made excuses such as having bad days, hence she'd accidentally release her anger and other emotions by yelling, the silent treatment, etc. I questioned further if there was anything in the past that was bothering her, which she replied snarkily, "Nothing is bothering me." I raised her into a better person. If you have problems with how I'm raising her, she's all yours. I don't want to argue anymore, especially with a sensitive, lazy person like you. We had a lot of arguments in the past on raising Ha-Young. This phrase was used in all of our arguments to shut me up, as Ha-Young was consistently used as an emotional punching bag and a trophy for my wife. This was the last straw. I told my wife we were done, then told her to pack up and leave. I thanked her for letting me realize my self-worth. After some time had passed, she had driven to her parents' house and was staying there for a bit. When Ha-Young came back, she noticed her mom's room was a lot better than it was and knew what had happened. I hugged Ha-Young and told her I was sorry for the mess I had caused, before reassuring her that nothing was her fault. I told her my ex-wife would come back a few more times to collect the rest of her stuff, but our relationship was over. This event shook me up a lot, but I know things will get better. I'm trying to make Ha-Young always feel loved. Ha-Young, you are my universe and that will never change. AITA, because my husband thinks I'm stupid and wasteful for knowing fun facts. Something about myself is that I know so many random fun facts. They are just interesting and don't really serve much purpose, but they do make interesting conversation starters and nice for icebreakers. Last night my husband and I were talking about his upcoming China trip and he's very stressed out about it. Apparently there was a serious lack of preparation from his business partners, brother and dad, and dumped it on my husband until the last minute. Well, during our talk I told him a random fun fact about China and immediately his demeanor changed. He looked at me and said to me, "This makes me sad. This is what you waste your brain on." And I looked at him and my smile dropped. He went on to tell me that I'm wasting my time looking up these facts and I could do so much more with my time that's useful. I don't go out of my way to learn them. I have an app downloaded on my phone that send me a random fact and sometimes I remember them. Later that night I had told him that he hurt my feelings and he gave me a quick sorry but didn't feel genuine. I told him that my fun facts don't cause any harm to him or myself, so why does it bother him so much? He told me it makes me look bad and unintelligent. I told him that putting me down doesn't benefit with of us, so I don't understand why he's being mean to me. I keep telling myself that he's just stressed out about his trip, but he said that's not it. We kept arguing about this all night and it turned in so much bigger. Now I don't know what to do. Please help me with this because I don't know how to feel or what to say to him when he comes home from work. AITA, for asking my friend to pay me back for breaking an expensive skincare product. A few days ago, I F24 hosted a sleepover with two of my friends, both also 24. At the end of the night, while we were all taking off our makeup, I told them they could use any of the skincare products in my bathroom cabinet. I'm really into skincare and have a variety of products, ranging from drugstore to high-end. A few moments later, one of my friends, Jane, told me she accidentally dropped and broke one of my skincare products. It was the SK2 Patera Essence, which retails for about 134 Canadian dollars. The bottle is made of glass, so it's quite fragile. It was about 80 full since I had just bought it a couple of weeks earlier. She apologized and said she felt really bad. I told her it was fine, but when I mentioned the cost, she was shocked. I then asked if it would be possible for her to pay me back. Not the full price but at least part of it. She seemed uncomfortable and said she didn't think she should have to pay since it was an accident and I had offered for her to use the products in the first place. Since then it's been awkward between us and we haven't spoken. Our other friend who was there isn't taking sides and is staying neutral about the whole situation. AITA, for asking her to help cover the cost of the broken product. Added, I wanted to thank everybody for their input. I didn't expect this story to get that much attention. I've been reading the responses you guys left. And just to clarify some things, I didn't tell my friends about the price beforehand because it would be kinda awkward to say, hey, you can use my stuff but be careful, it's really expensive. I trusted my friends to use my products responsibly. I keep all my skincare in the same cabinet regardless of cost, because I use them on a daily basis, so it's just more practical. Jane is not wealthy, but she is financially stable. She admitted that she knew it was an expensive product. She's heard of the brand before but didn't realize it was that expensive. This isn't a hill I want to die on, so I'm not going to press the issue further with Jane. I texted her to let her know she doesn't have to reimburse me. Thank you again for all the perspectives. AITA, for banning my roommate's girlfriend for touching my raw cookie dough. I rent a room to a lad called AJ. He's 31. He is dating Nina, 25F. I don't mind if AJ has people over or anything, but Nina has been here a lot. I am already annoyed because Nina always asks to borrow stuff from me. Can I borrow a pair of pants for work? I forgot mine. Do you have extra face masks or can I borrow lotion, tampons, socks? I have always told her no, I don't make a lot and I don't loan things. She was furious I wouldn't give her a pad, but I use a Diva cup and period underwear and I am not sharing those. She got mad I wouldn't loan her a dress for their surprise date night. I told her if she asks again for anything of mine then she's not allowed back in the apartment. I told her to stop acting like we are friends and don't use my stuff. Short of like medical things, band-aids, she should go buy her own stuff. This led to AJ being mad at me for making her feel unwelcome. I said I don't want her around at all, and the next time it happens I'm gonna ban her. He said she is not that bad. I ended up letting him know one more step over the line and she's gone, and if he breaks that ban, he can find a new place as he is month to month. Nina ended up being fine for a few days. I was making cookies from scratch. They come in from some date. She sees the cookies and asks the kind. I tell her chocolate chip and she comes over, sticks her finger in the dough, and takes a chunk. I got so mad I told her to get out. She's banned. I didn't care. When AJ tried to argue with me I said I am not renewing his lease if she's not gone in 2 minutes. They left and I am now being called an asshole by friends. AITA for calling the police on my nephew after he stole from me and squatted in my house. I 45F am in a difficult situation with my nephew 25M and my family, and I need some perspective as I simply feel terrible about this whole situation. Last year, my nephew lost his job and couldn't afford to stay with his friends anymore. Having helped raise him and having such a deep connection, I decided to help him out. I had recently bought a house over the summer to rent out, so I let him stay there until he could get back on his feet. I also gave him $3,000 to help with living expenses and such. A few months later, he landed a job at a major tech firm, and during Thanksgiving, he bragged that his starting salary was almost as much as I've been making after 10 years in my current job. I was naturally very enthused for him and extremely proud. I decided after the holidays it was time for him to move on and get a place and start paying rent. As spring rolled around, I urged him to find another place to live or start paying me. I also told him we could forget the $3,000 and just move on. He refused, getting really upset and saying it was convenient for him to stay since it was close to his new job and that he was not in a financial situation to be paying rent right now, which confused me, as I previously stated he was bragging about his salary. I then offered to let him rent the property for a little more than the mortgage, which was less than what I planned to charge other tenants. He refused and has barely spoken to me since. I really struggled, but my family insisted that I give him a 30-day notice to vacate the property, which I had notarized. He ignored it. I then started to talk about eviction. We got into another argument when I got to repainting the house with notice because he had scuffed up the walls. He kicked over my paint cans, ruining the carpet. I had no choice but to file for eviction. It was all simply distraining. I had some valuables and furniture I had stored in a crawl space I'd been too afraid to move due to the tension. I found that he sold my retro games and consoles, 2 paintings, my dining set, and a few other things through a camera on my property. I called the police to file a report. He came home during this completely out of his mind. They found ketamine in his system and paraphernalia and he is now facing jail time for the possession but also DUI. My family is now furious with me, blaming me for ruining his life. His parents won't talk to me, and they claim I knew he was high when I called the police when he hadn't even came home yet. They said I should have called them before the police to settle it. I feel like I did everything I could to help him until he crossed too many lines. I just am so stressed and guilt-ridden. I just need to hear some opinions. AITA for canceling my daughter's date last minute. The #1 rule in Army, 48 am my wife, 46F house is no dating until you're 16. Our son had to wait, our elder daughter had to wait, and we've made it clear to our youngest daughter that she has to wait too. She's only 12 right now, going into 7th grade this fall. She's never really complained before about the no dating rule, but a few nights ago she told me she was going to the movies with a friend. Yes, she told me, rather than asking if she could go. She said the friend's sibling was dropping them off and picking them up, so I didn't need to do anything. I asked how long the movie was and which friend she was going with. Normally I wouldn't have let her go. It was less than half an hour before she was supposed to leave, and I like to know plans at least a day in advance. But since it's summer and she's been pretty bored recently, I figured I'd let it slide. She said the movie went past 10, and since we live pretty far from the theater she wouldn't be home until around 11. I asked again which friend it was. I would only trust her out this late with her best friend's sister, who babysat her for years. She was very vague and didn't mention a specific name, so I told her she couldn't go. After complaining for a while, she caved and told me a boy she'd met had invited her and she was really looking forward to it. I reminded her of the no dating rule, though she claimed it's not a date and said she could go on a date with him in 4 years if he were still interested. I also allowed her to text him and cancel. She cried and slammed the door to her room, saying stuff like she really likes him and was looking forward to it so much. When my wife got home we talked about it, and she agreed that canceling the date was the right decision. However, a couple days later we got an angry call from the boy's parents. By the way, they got my number from the school listing, which is where I later found out my daughter met him. They said their son had bailed on a family event, and the least I could do was pay for another date for the two of them. I said she couldn't go and I was sorry, but had she told us about the date sooner I would have cancelled sooner. They angrily hung up. Also, it seems like she and the boy had been texting all summer and were only planning a date now for God knows what reason. I should have guessed, considering she's been pretty secretive about her phone recently and clicking out of her texts whenever I walked by. AITA for choosing my brothers to do some of the father of the bride traditions at my wedding and not my stepdad. My dad died when my brothers and I 26F were 12 meters, 7F and 5 meters. I was 12 when I met my stepdad for the first time. He and mom got married just before my 13th birthday. So it was a short time I knew him before he became my stepdad. My stepdad met us all expecting he would be stepping in as a dad to all three of us. For this reason he and my older brother never got along. My younger brother and I were younger so it was expected we'd be different, but it didn't work that way. I liked him and saw him more like an uncle, not a dad or a parent, and he tried really hard to be more than that, sometimes far too hard, and it caused us to pull back. It would then lead to discussions and asking why we were resisting having a second dad, and being told we could have more than one. Our dad would want us to have more than one. It led us to therapy where my mom and stepdad were told by the therapist that it wasn't something they could or should force, in that being an uncle figure was better than all three of us landing where my older brother did, which they were risking. We also got to hear in therapy how my stepdad never got to have kids of his own and would have loved them, and so he felt extra hurt that the kids he loved and wanted to be that dad for didn't want him in that way. There was a definite shift after therapy. He was less involved, still caring and all, but he did pull away some. And while I think we were supposed to want him more, it was a relief. Both my younger brother and I were more relaxed about our stepdad after that. We didn't miss his extra efforts, and my mom told us a few times that it made my stepdad feel really shitty. I got engaged recently and my mom and stepdad asked me directly if my stepdad would be given the role as father of the bride. I told them I was intending to ask my older brothers, but not in the full role, more so a few of the traditions that come with it. My stepdad asked me not to. He said he wanted to fill the role, that he wanted to walk me down the aisle and have a father-daughter dance, as well as being the one who says he gives me to my fiancée. I told him I understood, but that wasn't what I wanted. I told him he would still be included, just not that way, that he and mom would be seated at a table with my eels, would be walking to their seats together like my eels, would be announced like them. After that talk I asked my brothers and both of them said yes. My younger brother said they'd wear something of dad's while doing it, and since they both look so much like him, we all do, it could be an extra comfort to me. I was so happy. My mom and stepdad aren't happy. They told me the discussion was not over, and I didn't give my stepdad enough consideration. My mom told me I could have given my stepdad the greatest gift of being a dad for one day, and I denied him. And by choosing both brothers, especially my younger brother, I insulted him. For clarity's sake, my stepdad is not giving any money to the wedding. AITA for choosing to not wear a bracelet my stepmother and stepsisters wore to their weddings. At 24F am getting married this winter. My stepmother wanted me to wear a bracelet that was handed down from her grandmother, that she and my stepsisters all wore at their weddings, and that my half-sisters will likely wear at theirs, at my wedding, and have it be my something borrowed. I told her it was a really sweet offer, but I already had my something old, new, borrowed and blue taken care of. She was upset that I didn't have her help with any of that. She asked me what would represent her half of my family on my wedding day. I told her they didn't really need representing and that my step and half siblings will be there, as well as her. She told me I'm not including her whole family like I'm including my paternal and maternal sides, and that she already knows I'm wearing some stuff of my mom's and some stuff from maternal family members. She said she wanted to see me honor both moms during the wedding. I still chose not to wear it. She's upset because she married my dad when I was 9. After my mom died, and wanted me to embrace her and her family, her kids and extended family, as equally family to me as my mom and dad and maternal and paternal families. She knows I don't, but I know she wants me to take the symbol anyway. She argued a bit. Then she told my dad, and he told me it would be extra sweet and meaningful to make my stepmother happy and show love and acceptance for my third parent and third side of my family. AITA for defending myself to my girlfriend's brother by saying I'm cool enough to sleep with his sister. For context, I work in IT. Ever since I was young, I have always enjoyed programming and tinkering with computers, and I've been generally pretty good at it. Like many of my counterparts, I've often felt frustrated by the way we're portrayed in media. It's always the same stereotype: socially awkward, lacking in social skills, and generally sad characters. I realize that a lot of stereotypes begin because they have some kernel of truth to them, which is why I've also felt a little conscious to speak super openly about my hobbies. Early on, I actually had self-esteem issues because of this, which is something I've discussed before with my girlfriend, but it also made me go out of my way to make sure I maintain a healthy balance of activities rather than fall into the stereotype. Yes, I still have my nerdy hobbies, but I also make an effort to go to the gym, host game nights, go on hikes with friends, etc. So while I've worked through my insecurities, it took me the better part of my early life to get over myself, and a grain of self-consciousness still resurfaces sometimes. One evening, I was relaxing at my place, watching a TV show where yet again, IT guys were the butt of the joke. My girlfriend's brother happened to be visiting with a mixed group of friends. He and I have never been particularly close. He's always seen me as the typical IT guy, nerdy, introverted, and obsessed with computers. He made a passing comment about how IT guys are like the ones on TV, incapable of normal social interactions. I tried to brush it off, saying not all of us fit that mold, but he persisted, asking if people really saw me that way. I laughed it off, but inside, it stung. Later that evening, we were having a few drinks. My girlfriend wasn't around, and he brought up the topic again unprovoked, this time with mockery in his tone. He mentioned how IT guys are never seen as cool or desirable. Feeling a mix of annoyance and defiance, I responded, well, maybe I don't have all the charisma and charm that you think is necessary, but I'm cool enough for your sister to sleep with me. His expression went from smug to shocked in an instant. He called me an asshole and stormed out of the room, leaving me sitting there, regretting my words almost immediately. The tension lingered for days after that incident, with awkwardness whenever we crossed paths. On finding out, my girlfriend's reaction was, I understand the point you were making, but the way you said it was not cool. Reflecting on it now, I wonder if I went too far. Maybe I let my frustration with stereotypes get the best of me, and I ended up alienating him and possibly my girlfriend in the process. But at the same time, I also felt like I needed to stand up for myself against his unfair assumptions. AITA in this situation? AITA for ditching a trip because I'm pregnant? We planned a trip to the Maldives with my friend and her husband. However, I just found out I'm pregnant and my doctor is advising me not to go since I will still be in my first trimester. We paid for our own hotel rooms and planes separately and the cost is non-refundable, but I'm okay with eating the cost of our hotel room and plane. I feel extremely bad for ditching. AITA is also worried about Zika virus. AITA for double checking with my husband before making plans with a friend. I 26F have been married to my husband 29M for 2 years and we have a 9-month-old son. My friend Amy 27F is normally a very fun friend, but recently I had been noticing that when she asks me to do something and I tell her I need to double check with my husband, she gets annoyed. I admittedly never really used to do this, but since I had a baby it makes more sense to do, because if my husband was already making plans, it's not like we can just do our own separate things anymore. We have a baby to think of and need to plan to find someone to babysit if we'll both be out. This past weekend I went to the movies with Amy, and after it was over she suggested we go get dinner. This wasn't originally the plan, so I said yes, sounds good, let me call husband really quick, and before I could even finish my sentence she literally stomped off and shouted forget IT. I was literally so confused and she had drove me there, so I then had to call my husband to come get me, and he had to wake up our baby to do so. The next day Amy texted me a bunch of long texts and basically said that it's creepy that I have to let my husband know my every move, and that it's rude to her for me to do that because when we make plans together my husband isn't invited, so he doesn't need to weigh in. I tried to tell her that I literally just needed to let him know where I was, so he didn't worry, but she kept repeating herself and then also insinuated my husband is abusive. First off, I would put the hurt on him if he ever tried to abuse me, and second, I don't think that's abusive to ask your partner to let you know their whereabouts. Like I'm a mother, I can't just disappear. And he also would never tell me no, I can't go somewhere, like he actively tells me to go out with friends, but if I don't come home when I say I will, then I should at least call to let him know so he don't think I'm dead in a ditch. I told Amy this and she was not having it. Also for context, Amy has only ever been in one exclusive relationship when we were in school. They broke up before graduation and never lived together. So maybe that's part of it, but she really seems to believe I'm being controlled, and that I should just do my thing and not check in with my husband. My mom said from now on probably just don't tell her I'm checking in with him, but still do it in text. But my husband said she's the disrespectful one and that I could do better than her as a friend. So AITA for embarrassing my parents in family therapy? I'm 15 meters in family therapy with my parents and my sisters Alicia 13F and Kaylee 12F. Therapy is pretty new and not going so well. We're not a close family. We have a lot of issues and I know we have extra stresses, because Alicia has a lot of complex medical issues and she can't do everything Kaylee and I can. She needs a wheelchair sometimes, she's on lots of meds, but she can be fine sometimes too and can enjoy life. But she has limitations we don't. And my parents make me feel like they want me to be another adult and not one of their kids. They don't like me spending time with friends. They say I could be home, helping, taking care of my sisters or doing stuff at home for them. When I do go they can make me take one or both sisters. Get angry if Alicia can't join. If I'm forced to take one of my sisters, or both, I can't have fun. I get stuck making sure they're okay. Even birthday parties like at places and not kid parties anymore I can be forced to bring them when they're not invited and I get to watch them have fun. If I have fun at something and my sisters don't, then I get in trouble. Happened during our last field trips. I had a great time. Alicia had to leave early because she was sick. Kaylee had such a bad time. I told Grandpa I had a great time and my parents berated me for it. While Kaylee got to talk about how fun my best friend's birthday at the trampoline park was, and she didn't get into trouble for Alicia being jealous and missing out like I would. I got berated for not having fun though, for acting spoiled that I didn't have a good time. They get mad I don't buy my sister's birthday and Christmas gifts. They get mad that I get gifts from my best friend's parents. They get mad that I get invited to my best friend's family events as a friend for him to hang out with, and it's made clear my sisters aren't invited even if it's something they could be included in. My parents get annoyed when I confide in Grandpa, but they also get annoyed if I tell them how they make me feel. Alicia hates being left out, which I get, but I'm the only one my parents get angry with for it. Now we're in family therapy. My parents are using it to talk about how awful I am. They say I'm making life harder for everyone. They didn't expect me to say how things really are, but I did. After my parents said I act like a 5-year-old who doesn't like being the center of attention, I brought up in therapy how they treat me and how I feel like they take their frustration about Alicia requiring so much care out on me, how I'm held to a higher standard and they want me to be an adult and not a kid. I said they can't stand me having fun without my sisters or seeing me being the only one having fun, but almost like it when I'm the one not having fun. My parents got so pissed at me after the session and accused me of embarrassing them. I told them they just didn't want me to speak so openly in front of my sisters, which is why they include them. AITA for getting a wedding cancelled by sending a video to the bride. TLDR, I supplied my future aunt-in-law with proof that a cousin is talking shit about her, which caused one of the wedding celebrations to be cancelled. My uncle J 28M is marrying Mel 26F. She's shy, so she never wanted a big wedding where she has to walk down the aisle etc. She wants to elope with just him and her, and also have a traditional wedding from her country. He's completely cool with doing things how she wants it, but Jay's mom, Amanda, wants the typical wedding. Mel conceded that she was okay with having an additional third wedding where Amanda could do all the planning and Mel would veto anything she didn't like. Cost-wise, it's no issue because the other two weddings are essentially free. The problem started when Amanda was showing Mel the bridesmaid list. There were going to be 7 bridesmaids, and one of them was Jay's cousin Letty 27F. Letty has been nothing but rude to Mel since the day they met. She constantly makes little digs at her, talks shit about her, and overall makes it clear that she does not like her. So Mel immediately vetoed it. Letty was in the room sitting with them during the veto and threw a fit, talking about how Mel is always rude to her. I can vouch for Mel and say that she never chooses to interact with Letty in any way, shape, form. What she does do is whenever Letty makes a snide comment, she makes a direct comment back in response. So to an outsider, it might seem like Mel is being hostile, but to everyone in the family, it's a roll your eyes moment where we know Letty is the asshole, and Mel just isn't taking it. Letty tried to claim that Mel has been holding a grudge based on the first week of the meeting, but then Mel pulled out a video that I sent her of Letty talking shit about her just a couple of days ago. In it, Letty's calling her a bitch and saying stuff like she's not even that pretty, etc. Amanda sees this and immediately starts minimizing it, saying oh she didn't mean that and so on. At this point, I think Mel has had enough because everyone in the family knows how Letty acts towards her, but they never take it seriously. They only slightly tell Letty off and are always trying to convince Mel to not take it to heart. So Mel says that she's sorry but the wedding is off. She's still going to marry Jay and the other two originally planned ways, but she's not going to do Amanda's version anymore. She says this all nicely as always, but Amanda is now crying. Letty's screaming at everyone, and other family members are saying that Mel should learn how to take a joke. Days later, I said I was the one who sent Mel the video, and now a couple of family members are mad at me for getting involved. Was I the asshole here? Letty won't talk to me because I'm a snitch, but I don't even like her anyway. I'm just upset that I indirectly caused Amanda to be upset. AITA for giving permission for my stepson to live with his maternal grandparents and not fighting for him. My husband is on hospice right now. He doesn't have long left. We're falling apart. all of us, and now I'm fighting with my husband's parents, so please give me some perspective here. My husband and I got married a decade ago. He was a single dad, no longer dating his son's mom. They were never married. They shared custody and my husband was always a very involved father in his son's life, and that did not change when he met and married me. My stepson is currently 13. His mom died in an accident when he was 7, which is when he started to live with us full time. It was a struggle for him. He wanted his mom, missed his mom, and he told me on several occasions that he didn't hate me, but he didn't want me. He wanted his mom. He never really connected with his younger siblings. My husband and I have 3 kids under 8 together. And while he always adored his dad, I know he never really healed fully from his mom's death. He was in grief therapy, we did family therapy, but he was never truly happy here once his mom died. And then my husband got sick. My stepson has been so afraid to lose his dad, and when we knew it was coming, the discussion of where he lives was brought up by my stepson. My husband wanted me to finish raising my stepson, for all 4 kids to stay together. He told my stepson no to living with his maternal grandparents in another state. He was very against the idea and fearful that my stepson would just let all contact end. But I always felt like my stepson would be happier, more settled, more okay with the family he wanted to be with. Even with his dad here, and he loves his dad, I know he does, it was never enough to make him happy with us. I told my husband this. We argued about it once. I promised my stepson those months ago that I would honor his wishes and he could live with his maternal grandparents. Broke my heart, but I know this is what he truly wants. I think the only reason he wasn't asking to live with him sooner is his dad. The end is almost on us now. We don't know how long my husband has, but not long at all, maybe even just days. My stepson's maternal grandparents flew in the day we were told it was coming fast. My stepson decided to stay with them. My husband's parents were furious despite my stepson being here every day still. My husband is sad but has accepted and understands. He also gave his blessing, though reluctant, but his parents are mad. They're furious that I'm letting my stepson go live with his maternal grandparents. They told me I should fight for him, should make him stay. They told me he will never love or accept his siblings if he ends all contact now at 13. Mill screamed at me for 20 minutes yesterday. I hate fighting with them. AITA for going to a family event that my sister was not invited to after she bailed on a funeral. My bio family really sucks. My sister and I became close to one of our friends. Beth and her family basically adopted us. They were a rock when our lives sucked with our own parents. They helped put us through college and I do consider them my parents. The problem started earlier this year. Beth's dad passed away and it was a bad time for everyone. Funerals are a huge deal in their family. If you don't go to the funeral, it is considered a fuck you to the dead and the family. My sister has a fear of the dead. She refused to go to the funeral. I tried to get her to go, but she still refused. The day came and went and they did not take it well. Beth's mom really didn't take it well, and basically banned her from her home. Her words that he gave so much to her, and she basically spat in his face by not going. Basically everyone in the family is pissed at her. She has not been invited to the home and got kicked out when she showed up once. They have a big family reunion in July each year. We both have been going for years, but this year she did not get an invite. She called me up and asked me to not go. I told her that I plan on going even though she is not invited. We got into an argument and she thinks I am a huge jerk for going, and I pointed out that she knew they would not take it well that she didn't go to the funeral. AITA for how I reacted when my parents surprised my 16-year-old little sister with a new car for her birthday after she finished her cancer treatment but bought me a $25 gift card and a book for mine, which was just 2 weeks later. My sister was diagnosed with cancer last year. It has been hard on our family and even harder on her. I love my sister and I tried to be there for her as best as I could. I also did everything I could to make things easier for my parents. I took over all chores, cooked every day, cleaned the house, did laundry, took care of my younger sibling and babysat them more. Luckily she is doing really well and has recently finished her treatment, which is great and we are all grateful. Our birthdays are 2 weeks apart and hers was 2 weeks ago. My parents bought her a new car to celebrate after everything she went through, which I understand. She does deserve it, but I was a bit surprised because I thought they didn't have any money. My dad has been unwilling to help me get a used car since last year, telling me that they do not have the money. I didn't even want him to pay for all of it. I have been saving up and just wanted them to help me with the rest, but he kept telling me that they have no money for that. Well, my birthday just rolled around and my parents bought me a book that I mentioned in passing and a $25 takeout gift card to a place I like. I thanked them, but they saw that I wasn't too thrilled and asked me what was wrong. I told them that while I appreciate the gifts, I thought that they were finally going to help me with the remaining $800 for buying the used car, seeing that they could now afford a new car for my sister. But that's when they accused me of being jealous of my sister, who had just gone through something very traumatic, and that I was trying to make everything about me and why couldn't just be happy for her. They said that at the end of the day, I have a job and could just continue saving. Am I the asshole? AITA for learning sign language just to be a chaser for deaf girls? Ever since I was a child, I've had an absolutely horrible stutter. On a good day I sound like a sputtering moron, where no matter my current state of confidence I would always sound like either a nervous loser or a malfunctioning robot. On a bad day I sound like a homunculus of a human, more used to making ugly monstrous sounds than human speech. Needless to say, I've never had any confidence when it comes to dating. I figured that if I dated someone who was deaf they would be able to easily see past my voice. Even if it doesn't work out, at least it's my fault, you know? So I started looking into dating apps for deaf people before I kinda realized that I'll need to know sign language before I really even tried dating. So since the start of the summer I've been trying to learn to do ASL, at the very least enough to do basic conversation before growing from there when I do dating. I told some friends about it and most of them said good for me or something like that, but one thought it was weird and creepy to go through with learning this to exclusively creep on girls with a disability. I'm too ashamed to ask my family and none of my friends have been very useful. Does it make me weird or I guess the asshole for learning sign and planning to exclusively date deaf girls? AITA for leaving a family reunion early because of my cousin's unannounced pet. My husband's 28 meters family has some annual reunions, and this year it was hosted at his aunt's large, rural property. Everyone was excited because it's a big event where we all catch up, play games, and enjoy each other's company. One of his cousins recently got a dog, which she adores and brings everywhere. However, no one mentioned that there would be a dog coming to the reunion. Here's the thing, I have a severe dog allergy. When I arrived at the reunion and saw the dog running around, I started feeling anxious. I approached her and gently reminded her about my allergy, hoping she would understand and maybe keep the dog in a separate area. Instead, she got defensive because she didn't remember I had an allergy, but then, she told me she would keep the dog away. This obviously didn't happen. The dog was running around. I tried to participate in the activities, but within an hour, I was already sneezing and my eyes were itching terribly. I couldn't take it anymore and told my husband I had to leave. He was sympathetic but suggested I should try to stick it out. When I insisted on leaving, some of his family members overheard and gave me a hard time for overreacting and ruining the fun. I drove back home feeling frustrated and left out. I left my husband there and a family member would drive him home. Later, I received a series of texts from his aunt accusing me of being dramatic and saying that my departure made everyone uncomfortable. Some other family members echoed her sentiments, saying I should have just taken allergy medicine and stayed. My husband was also frustrated because he felt caught in the middle. He wasn't supportive of my decision to leave early and made it clear that he was disappointed. He thought I should have tried harder to manage my allergies and stay for the sake of family unity. His lack of understanding added to my stress and made me feel even more isolated. However, a few of his family members understood my situation and said I did the right thing by prioritizing my health. Now, I'm conflicted because I hate the idea of causing family tension and having this awkward situation with my husband, but I also feel like my concerns were valid. So, AITA for leaving the family reunion early because of my cousin's unannounced pet? AITA for leaving the dry wedding early to go out. So 2 weeks ago a 35F went to a wedding in our college town for a member of our college friend group. My husband and I left the kids with my parents and we got a verbo with another couple I went to college with for a few days. My husband and I don't have a ton of time to ourselves away from the kids, so we were excited to let loose. On the invitation it said the wedding went to 11 with an after party with the bride and groom at the venue. The venue was a gorgeous mansion and the bride and groom had it for the night. They were leaving for the honeymoon the next morning. Cut to wedding day and it's a dry wedding. Apparently the groom is 2 years sober. No one told us this and we were admittedly bummed. When we found out there was no alcohol, we told people we were going to some bars after and not going to the after party. We left the wedding at 9:30 because we were itching to go out and the wedding was boring. Pretty much the whole college crew left around the time and went out. Apparently, the bride's friend group did not stay for the party. The grooms did and the optics were very lopsided at the party. We all heard from the bride about this and she called us assholes for leaving. She said that she didn't feel supported and felt like we were spitying her now husband for his sobriety. I told her that she was reading too much into it. We just wanted to go out. She is especially mad at me as I'm looked at as the ringleader of this outing. I don't think I've done anything wrong. AITA. Edit ceremony was at 5, reception at 6. AITA for letting my daughter be hungry and not ordering for her at a fast food place. My daughter is 15 and she has social anxiety. She is in counseling for it and not meds not needed. The rule in our household is that if you want fast food, when we are out you pay for it with your own money. If you don't have McDonald's money you aren't going there. I also don't allow eating in the car, so we stop at places to eat. We had to go out and do some errands. I told her to grab something to eat beforehand but she said she wasn't hungry. We go on our errands and halfway through she wants to stop by Wendy's. I pull in and tell her to go order, I will get a seat. She comes back a few minutes later and tells me she can't order. She doesn't want to talk to the cashier at the front of the store. I told her she needs to order and we will head out. She asked me to order and I told her no. We sit for about 10 minutes when I tell her it's time to go. She in short is pissed and my wife is also upset I didn't order for her, that I let her go hungry. I find this stupid. I didn't starve her for days. It was 4-hour outing. AITA added for those asking. Yes, her counselor has told us she needs to start doing this stuff on her own. This was low risk. She literally gave the example of ordering food without our help. I also ran through a script with her at the table but she wouldn't do it. AITA for making a scene when my brother's girlfriend tried to protect her peace. I didn't know how to title the post. I apologize. My son is 11 months old and 97th percentile for height. He is a big ass baby, currently 36 inches tall or about the size of your average 2.5 yo and in 3T clothing. However, despite him being so big, he is still just a baby and most of his nutrition still from breast milk. For the 4th we had a big family cookout and my brother invited his girlfriend. I live out of state and I didn't want my flights to be too close together so I'm staying for a bit longer. My brother and his girlfriend are doing the same thing. My family is aware that my son is a baby, obviously, but my brother's girlfriend was not and was initially very shocked when she saw him misbehaving. We explained that he's still a baby, so he's still just exploring the world. She remained uncomfortable but we mostly avoid each other, because he's so big feeding him is a chore so I use an armchair as there isn't enough support elsewhere and so there isn't much I can do about covering up. He gets sweaty under blankets and won't eat. It's been a tense couple of weeks. Last night I think we both kind of lost it. My son needed feeding and she was in the chair. I asked her to move which she whined about but did get up. Everything was fine for another hour or so until she demanded my brother pay for her to go to a hotel for the remaining nights because she can't cope with me and the baby. He asked what she meant and she said that he's clearly big enough to be on real food and I enjoy making her uncomfortable by feeding him in front of her. I got embarrassingly upset and told her that she should keep her mouth shut because she clearly doesn't know the first thing about parenting and certainly doesn't know anything about me or my son. We argued the same points for a little more until my son woke from his nap and I left to collect him. She then left after telling us all, loudly, that she needs to protect her peace, which is honestly not a phrase I thought real people said. My brother told me I was being immature and left with her. My dad is on my side but did tell me I should have removed myself from the situation as I'm a grown woman and she's still a teenager. I'm 3 years older than her so I think that's BS. My mom is neutral but is still trying to convince my brother to come home and ended up paying for their hotel. She thinks I could have been a lot more understanding. AITA, was I completely out of order? AITA for making my BF lunch for work? Hi, I 23F and my BF 23M live together in a studio apartment. For his birthday I got him 3 things. Has really into art, so I got something. He really wanted to work on his art. I also got him a unique mug and lastly I got him a lunchbox. He has been complaining that he was having a hard time bringing lunch to work because he didn't have one. I know it isn't a glamorous gift, but I thought it would be a helpful one. Also my birthday was back in January and he didn't even get me a birthday gift due to financial issues. Anyway, he was very disappointed when he opened the lunchbox gift and was very upset I got it for him. I explained why, and he was still upset. His birthday was on a Friday, so on Monday I guess I wasn't thinking about it. I woke up early and made him his lunch. In the lunchbox I got him, he became extremely pissed off, telling me that he didn't even eat lunch week because his teeth were bothering him, and so because I didn't remember he was even more mad. He then went on a whole rant, making rude comments at me, demeaning my gift, and saying I don't listen to him when I talk. While I was just trying to be helpful, and can't remember everything he says to me. I also didn't just get him a lunchbox, I got him other things he wanted. AITA for making my BIL homeless and embarrassing him. My sister's husband Mark left her and their 12-year-old son Alex about a year ago. His reason was that Alex was too difficult to deal with. I think Mark is a piece of crap who blames his son for everything. Alex is a bit hyper and he does get into trouble for being distracted, impulsive etc. but he's not a bad kid. He loved his dad very much but he's not stupid. He quickly figured out why his dad left and hates his guts now. Not that I blame him. He's been through a lot and to put it very plainly, he thinks his mom might just up and leave one day too. Because of this, There will be nights where he won't go to sleep unless his mom sits with him. My sister would never abandon him like his dad did, but Alex is way too anxious. He used to wake up several times throughout the night just to make sure she was still there. He's loads better now, and my sister can go to bed in her room after putting him to sleep. Obviously, we don't tell anyone in our lives about this as it would be extremely embarrassing for Alex. I only know because I currently live with them. I'm helping around the house with Alex. Unfortunately, Mark called a couple nights ago wanting to apologize allegedly, and him and my sister had a pretty nasty fight about Alex, and my sister ended up telling Mark about the sleeping problem. Mark was pretty surprised allegedly but just hung up. I figured he actually felt some guilt towards his son for once, but I heard Alex going crazy in his room, and when I went to calm him down he just showed me his phone and he got exactly 3 texts from his dad telling him to man up, stop annoying his mom, and if he didn't man up he'd tell all of Alex's friends. I was appalled. Second my sister came home, I marched straight to Mark's mom's house where I knew Mark was staying and chewed him out. I don't think I'm the asshole for that, he deserved it. But Mark's mom and his sisters and their husbands and kids were home, and I told them what Mark's been saying about his own child. I didn't have to. It's none of their business. But I knew they adore Alex, and his mom was extremely angry. One of his sisters even went, "WTF is wrong with you?" Now Mark's mom is giving him a week to find somewhere else to live, and he's yelling at me for essentially making him homeless and dragging his entire family into things. He called me a dumb kid and said I'd what it feels like to be a parent and that he's human too. He admits that he could have been more decent with Alex too, so perhaps he's reflecting. I doubt it. I suppose I went too far regardless. AITA, for reference, I'm 21. My sister is 34, Mark is 35. AITA for not allowing my niece to have a cold beer. Today is my day off, and my oldest brother Matt dropped off my niece, his daughter Alyssa, 19 years old, because he doesn't trust her to be home alone, due to some issues he's had in the past with her inviting guys over his house, having a get-together without his permission, and another time she hot-wired his car while he was out to drive her friends around. Love her, but she doesn't listen. I made the mistake of not putting any water in the refrigerator and only having room temperature water. My AC was blasting, so I didn't think it was that bad. I had refrigerated Gatorade, but she got really upset, saying she hated Gatorade and that there's nothing to drink. I ignored her, and a couple of hours later she downed 2 cans of my beer. I did what I thought any uncle would do and snatched it away because she's not 21. She got upset and had some colorful words to share with me, so I told her to go to the guest room and stay there for the rest of the visit. I got a call from my brother just telling me to give her the beer, and I said no. He came to pick her up and told me I was DA because it's over 100 degrees and she just wanted a cold drink. Should I have just let her drink it? AITA for not asking my mom to include my half-siblings in our cooking time. My parents are divorced. My dad cheated. His wife is the woman he cheated with. I 16 meters was 7 when my parents told me they weren't going to be married anymore. My oldest half-sister was 2 at the time. My half-brother was born 2 months later, and my youngest half-sister was born almost 2 years after my half-brother. My parents split custody and parenting time with me, so I'm at mom's for a week and then my dad's. Like I said, my dad ended up marrying the woman he cheated with. I'm not close to him. I still go because it's easier just to carry on than to make it a legal dispute. I don't really like being at dad's, and I don't think I will see much of him or his family when I turn 18. So that's background and where I'm at. Onto the issue. Mom and I always cook together. She started me in the kitchen when I was a toddler, and she had me help, which was really not helping but just getting me involved. We started a recipe book together when I was in kindergarten, and we'd make up recipes or find stuff and change it so it could be ours, and we try to do one long cooking session every 2 weeks even before the divorce. It's our thing. Our special activity. My dad asks me sometimes if I still cook with mom, then asks if we still have the recipe book. He'll ask why I never cook for them as family. My half-siblings have said they'd like to cook, and their mom isn't into it, so she doesn't. About a year ago my oldest half-sister asked if she could cook with me and mom. I said no. My dad told me it'd be nice to include my half-siblings. I said it wouldn't be nice. This has come up a few times more. Dad keeps asking about it, and even though I no longer answer if we do cook or not, it's gotten so out of hand that my half-brother and oldest half-sister pestered their parents over it, and Dad asked. Mom said no, but Dad realized she sounded surprised. So Dad got mad at me for not asking Mom before. I told him I hadn't wanted to include them. Dad told me to quit being such a brat. He told me I'm their big brother and it would be good for us if I spend time with them. I told him I don't want to. I don't care about spending time with them, that I'd rather spend time with someone else. He told me to ask my mom to include them because she'll do it if I ask. I told him I won't and he can't make me. He waited until I was back at his house and asked me again, and I said I didn't ask. Dad called me a brat again and said I shouldn't shut my half-siblings out like this, and he called me a jerk. AITA for not attending my sister's wedding because she didn't invite my partner. So, my 29F sister 27F is getting married in a few months. We've always had a decent relationship, but we've never been super close. I've been with my partner 31M for 4 years now, and we live together. My family knows him well, and he's come to many family gatherings over the years. When I received my wedding invitation, I noticed it was only addressed to me. I asked my sister if my partner's invitation got lost in the mail, and she said that she didn't invite him because she wanted a small, intimate wedding with just close family and friends. I pointed out that my partner is practically family, and that other relatives are bringing their significant others. She replied that it was her wedding, and she gets to choose who attends. I was hurt by this and told her that if my partner isn't welcome, then I won't be attending either. She got upset, saying I'm being selfish and that I'm putting my relationship over our family. My parents think I should just go to keep the peace, but I feel strongly about standing up for my partner and are for refusing to go to my sister's wedding if my partner isn't invited. AITA for not defending my brother from his ex-wife. I 26M have a brother 29M who is going through a rather nasty divorce from his wife 30F right now that is completely his own fault. My sil is apparently divorcing him because she got fed up with his lack of respect for her and his relationship with our mother. I've seen what she's talking about firsthand, not just with her but in all his relationships. For context, my brother is the golden child, especially to my mom. My parents have always thrown me and my sister, the oldest, to the side for him and his accomplishments, and it's turned him into a giant entitled mama's boy even as a grown man. I'm not gonna mince words. My brother's relationship to our mom is unhealthy. He claims I just don't know what a good mother-son relationship is like, which is fair as my mother doesn't like me but they don't have any boundaries with each other, and my mom is overbearing and one of those I'm the most important woman in my son's life moms. She gets competitive with his girlfriends and is plain nasty to all of them. Sil was no different. She was just willing to put up with it more until she snapped after a recent incident. While he was at our parents' house, my sil texted him to discuss custody arrangements for their daughter. It devolved into an argument with him calling her all sorts of names and telling her to grow up, with my mom egging him on. The last thing she texted was, "We'll talk when you take your mom's tit out of your mouth and stop choking on her milk so you can actually act like a man." And then blocked him. He was pissed and telling us about it, and I couldn't help but laugh, and I asked what he expected. He's literally at our mommy's house crying to her about it. This really set both him and my parents off, and they all yelled at me about not supporting my brother, and now none of them are speaking to me. My sister sides with me and our sil but says maybe laughing at him when he's already hurting is a nothing to do. AITA for not defending my brother. AITA for not getting married to my girlfriend of 13 years because I don't want to lose the health insurance. So basically, as the post says, my girlfriend of 13 years wants us to get married. I also want that since we love each other and have been together for so long. We have 2 daughters, a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom. So all 4 of us are dependent on my sole income. The insurance that I have through my employer is expensive and very selective on what doctors we can use because they have to be in their network or else they won't cover. She and the girls have Medicaid, which allows them the freedom to see any doctor and not have to pay out of pocket. I told her that even though we want to get married, if we did that they would all lose the insurance. She thinks it's just an excuse and keeps making comments that really hurt me, such as, "Oh, I must not be marriage material or you'll never marry me," or "I must not deserve a wedding and we're living in sin." I don't know what to do. I know the cutoff for a family of 4 is only $36K. I made $90K last year. I just don't want a medical emergency to happen to her or the girls and then we're in trouble. I don't know what to do because I feel like she thinks all of our problems will be solved if we just get married. I believe it will cause more problems. We have very little savings, and adding a family plan to my current insurance is going to take $200 more from my paycheck. AITA for not going to my daughter's graduation party because my current girlfriend is not invited. My 47M daughter 24F is graduating this Saturday from college and has planned a small family graduation party afterward. She and my oldest daughter 26F are really excited about it and have ordered a theme cake and decorations for the party. Both of them have always excelled in academics, so I'm incredibly proud since they are the first in our family to finish high school and earn college degrees. They were both exemplary girls who are now becoming wonderful women, and seeing them accomplish their dreams makes me happy. My daughter graduating this Saturday even received a full scholarship to study overseas. The problem is their mother 47F. She has always been emotionally unstable. We met when we were around 19, and I got her pregnant. My mother forced us to get married, and that's how I ended up in a very unhealthy relationship for about 10 years until we finally divorced. I have been with other people after her, but she hasn't, partly due to being a difficult person and focusing on our girls. Currently, I'm dating the woman 47F I believe I want to be with for the rest of my life. She is smart, hardworking, and has given me excellent advice. I make sure to take her to most family and friend gatherings since my last relationship ended because my partner felt excluded, and I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. So when my daughter invited me to her graduation party, it was obvious to me that my girlfriend would come as well. However, my daughter's mother threatened them, saying she wouldn't attend if my current girlfriend was going. Her logic was that she would feel disrespected. I don't understand this since she has been present at other gatherings where I brought my partners at the time. I told my daughters that I wouldn't go unless I could bring my girlfriend because I want to make things right with her and marry her in the future. So I want her to feel included in my family. My daughter asked if there was a way for me to come alone, but I stood my ground. I want to be there with my girlfriend, and I think their mother should be the one to give in and get over this grudge she has held for so many years. My daughter eventually said she was okay, but then my oldest mentioned that she was really upset about me not going. So, AITA, edit my GF Sage, AITA for not moving so a child to sit down on public transport. There is public transport where I live, subway, and like anywhere, it's generally understood you give up your seat for someone who is elderly, disabled, or pregnant. I always try to do this. I was sitting down on the subway this weekend who I assume were parents' mom, dad with 2 kids got on. There was one available seat which one child sat on, and then the mom asked if I could give up my seat for the other child. I politely refused and said something along the lines of, "Sorry, I don't want to give up my seat. I'm on this train for a long time," which is true. It's a long journey for me. Another part of the reason, even though it's embarrassing and I didn't say, is that I have bad blisters on my feet at the moment. The mom responded, "Wow, you wouldn't give up your seat for a child?" I said that I wouldn't, and then someone else on the train gave up their seat. Even if I hadn't had blisters on my feet, I still don't think I would have given up my seat for a child. They don't have problems standing, and probably have better balance than most adults. I know I have a bias here because I'm purposefully child-free and my pet peeve is parents who feel they or their children are entitled to be the priority. While this was happening, everyone on the train was looking at me like I'm a massive ass. So am I the asshole? AITA for not punishing my daughter for what she said. My husband and I are slightly more well off than my sister's family. Because of this, my parents do more for them than they do us. When it comes to gifts, my daughter Maddie 7 get things from the dollar store while my nephews get whole Lego sets, iPads, and even Disney trips. If my sister needs babysitting, they will drop everything for her last minute. If I need it, I have to give them a 2 weeks heads up as well as proper payment. Because of this clear favoritism, my daughter doesn't have a good relationship with them. If you ask her about her grandparents, her mind automatically goes to my husband's parents because she forgets that she has 2 pairs. Earlier today we having a rare meetup with my parents. My daughter asked if she can go on the trampoline outside. My dad said no because it's for my nephews. My daughter begged but dad still said no. Maddie then stomps away and said, "This is why I like other grandma and grandpa more." My parents looked at me expectantly but I didn't do anything. I recently got off a call with my mom saying, "I should have told Maddie that was wrong to say." I told her, "What do you expect? She thinks y'all hate her and you all do nothing to dispel those thoughts." She just got quiet for a bit then said, "I still shouldn't let her say something like that to family," and hung up. My husband is on my side but he also isn't a fan of my family, so I need an outside opinion. AITA, edit to make some of you feel better. We don't bring her around them. Often she only sees them on holidays with the rest of our extended family. We were only visiting today to get something I was left in a will. As for babysitting, I have only asked twice in extreme emergencies and they said no. I have talked to them about this but they say it's not favoritism, she just needs less help because we are better off. Update: just got off the phone with my uncle. Apparently dad called and ranting about how disrespectful we are. Apparently this all stems from me going to college. Dad said since I had to be all hoity-toity and go to college, I shouldn't need his help and I should be living the easy life. He also said I'm selfish for trying to take help away from those who need it. Not sure what to think about all that. He's never brought up having a problem with that before. I'm going to discuss this with the rest of the family because with the holidays approaching I don't want to cut everybody else out to avoid them, so I'm going to ask how they feel about all this. AITA for not telling my mom when I had my baby. BG, my 30OF mom has always been an addict narcissist. When I was 13 she'd let me drink, smoke all I wanted. I thought it was great as a kid. I lived in the party house. My mom was cool. When I turned 18 I realized I did not want to live in that environment. I started going to church, quit drinking, the whole 9 yards. It didn't go over well and resulted in I get the F out of my house. However, I always tried to keep a relationship. I've been married for 8 years now. We struggled with fertility as I had multiple miscarriages. My mom has known about this. She has never been a consistent in my life since 18, but we'd at least exchange happy birthday and holiday messages. Big updates. I'd see her a handful of times a year. She lives 20 minutes away. 2 years ago I had my first grandchild. I kept her updated entire time. Texts, photos, but she never reached out to me. I had a very traumatic birth but updated her when I had the baby. She never checked in. PP waited over 2 months to come visit, only seen her 3 times. She has never liked a photo on FB, checked in or anything. Hurt so badly. When I found out I was pregnant again, I reached out. She seemed excited but still never reached out me. I sent updates for her to barely respond. I felt like I was forcing my kids and myself into her life. In October I had baby 3 weeks early. Through everything over the years, lack of care shown, I decided I wouldn't reach out but was open if she reached out. But nothing. She knows he was born but hasn't checked on me or baby. Baby is now 8 months. She plays victim, tells PPL that I am keeping my kids from her, which I'm not. I initiated all 3 visits with my first. I told her she was welcome anytime to let me know when she'd like to come, but she never calls or texts. I'm ready to wash my hands of this go no contact, but I'm told I can't cut her out. BC, she's my mom. I was wrong not to tell her I had my baby, but I really don't see why I should have when she has shown no care or interest. AITA, for refusing to drive my fiancé to the train station after he missed his bus. My 24F fiancé 25M has ADHD and has a difficult keeping a schedule, which often results in him sleeping past his alarm. Today he was supposed to catch the bus at 7:30 a.m. but missed it. I work shift work and had just finished my 3rd 12-hour night shift in a row. My commute home is about 45 minutes, so I got home just before 8:00 a.m. and woke up my fiancé upon entry. He was upset with himself right away, as he usually is when he sleeps in. We've had this issue in the past and I've previously told him that if he really needed a ride to the train station, I would prefer to pick him up at the front door. We live in an apartment because once I'm parked in the garage and make it upstairs, I'm tired and prefer not to leave again at this point, which I've still done in the past for him. I would say I probably drive him at least once every 2 weeks when he's late. He asked me if I drive him to the train station today, which would save him a 30-minute walk for his already long 1.5 hours commute, but I declined. I was hesitant at first, but decided that I deserved to put myself first. He seemed upset, and did make a comment saying I better see you in bed in 2 minutes then, but eventually went on his way. Approx 30 minutes later, he texted me saying that he knows it wasn't good timing but that he really could have used the drive today. Later today he called and I expressed to him how I was upset by this. He said he was also upset because I wasn't there for him when he needed me and that he would have done it for me if the roles were reversed, and that he was scared there was a limit to how much he could lean on me. Also that he hopes I'm happy that I got what I wanted and for me to enjoy my extra 30 minutes of sleep. To be fair, I'm not working today, so I'm able to sleep in later and it would have only taken me about 30 minutes in total. I feel a bit guilty as realistically it wouldn't have been that much of a burden to drive him and it means it would help him out a lot. I know he's been having a rough time lately and worked 7 days this week, and is already angry with himself as is. AITA, for refusing to give my room to my married cousin. I'm very upset as I'm writing this, so there might be errors, so PLS bear with me. On a 1-week family vacation, my immediate family aren't here. My dad got me a room at the hotel we were all staying, so I could have my own room. My cousin's 32F, I'll call her Joe, her husband I'll call him Bill. Their 2 kids had the room next to mine. The second day my cousins I wanted to go to the beach. Joe asked if she could stay in my room because her husband kids were disturbing her rest. I said okay, gave her my room card. We were gone for like the whole day. When we returned, Joe was still in my room. She had been watching TV. She had actually rented a movie. I was angry at this because it was my dad's credit card on the billing for the room. She apologized, left. The next day she asked to use my room. Again promised not to rent a movie. I agreed. When I returned, Bill was in my room laying on my bed. I wasn't mad, but I also didn't like it. I asked them to leave, that I needed to get ready since we were all going out to eat. We're at the restaurant eating, joking around, having a nice time, when my Aunt Joe's mom, the official adult of the family vacay, said, I quote, "You'll be sleeping in Joe's room with the kids so your elder sister, her husband, can have some privacy." I honestly didn't think she was talking to me until my uncle snapped at me asking if I was deaf. I looked around, everyone was looking at me, waiting for my okay or yes, ma, but I said no. The vibe of our table changed. My aunt basically ordered me to hand over my room card. Again, I said no. She then said it was wrong of me to expect adults to be sleeping in the same room with their kids when another child has a free room. I am 22 but I'm also the youngest. Sorry, I'm 24 again. I said no. Asked her to ask someone else. At this, everyone turned on me asking why I needed a room to myself. What was I doing by myself that would make me not want to share with kids? It was so uncomfortable. I left the next day. We had plans to go to the theme park, but they all left without me. I called my cousins, but they won't pick up. I texted, was left on read. I called my dad about this. He told me not to worry, he'll handle it. Dinner that night, I was called a snitch, that I had run to my dad when I was the one being disrespectful. Then my auntie asked me to leave the table or give my elder sister my room card. It was like a go to your room moment, so I went to my room, called my dad again. This time he told me to just change rooms to hold the peace. My mom brothers said not to. That they were looking for a free babysitter. Her kids aren't unruly half the time, but I'm not here to babysit today. I was left behind again. I don't know. I'm really upset about this, but I also don't want to give in. I'm thinking to just go home, but it's quite expensive to change my tickets, so 3 days left of this. AITA for refusing to support my brother's financial plans at the cost of my own. I'm not usually on Reddit, but I really needed somebody to settle this. So here goes. My 25F brother 22M recently asked me for money. He's planning to buy a property to flip and needs an extra $10,000 to cover initial costs. 2 years ago, I loaned him $5,000 for a similar project, which he eventually repaid. Since then, he's asked for money multiple times and I've given him around $15,000 more in total, but not all of it's been repaid. My husband 28M and I are saving for a down payment on a house. We've reached a point where lending money is directly impacting our plans. When my brother asked for the money, I told him we couldn't afford to help this time. He called me selfish. My parents have been blowing up my phone since, demanding I help him, because family should support each other no matter what. My husband fully supports my decision and thinks it's time to set firm boundaries, and I think I agree with him. But I'm starting to doubt myself. AITA. Some extra context. I told him I'd be lenient with getting him to repay the other loans because his husband was hospitalized and he had medical bills to pay, but that's in the far past now and he seems to think he's been let off the hook. AITA for selling my mother's paid-off house to help pay her assisted living bills instead of keeping it to pass down to my daughter. So, my mother broke her hip a few years ago and has been struggling with dementia. She needs round-the-clock care at an ALF because she uses a wheelchair and gets disoriented and struggles to care for herself. She has money coming in from Social Security and my deceased father's pension, but it's still not quite enough to fully cover the bills at the ALF, and the savings my father had put aside is quickly shrinking. I am capable of making up the difference myself. However, I do have substantial credit card debt from being a single mom, and it's pretty safe to say at this point there won't be any inheritance left when my mother finally passes. My sister wants to get power of attorney and sell her house, since it's just sitting there empty, and split the money 3 ways. A third to her to help pay off her mortgage, a third to me to pay off my debts, and a third to my mother to continue paying her ALF. My daughter is just finishing up college and my sister had no kids, so she is the only grandchild. My mother did always tell her that the house would go to her, but my father put in the will that the house would go to me and my sister. Though the will was written before my daughter was born. My mother was a simple housewife, so she never updated the will. My daughter is very upset with me because she says that she'll never be able to afford a house because it's very rare for her generation to be able to do so. I doubt my sister is willing to discuss leaving the house to my daughter, and, frankly, I think my daughter is being a little dramatic, saying she'll never be able to afford a house. She's getting a master's degree to work in a very high-demand healthcare profession. She'll have some student debt, but that's just another bill. I'm sure she'll be able to afford to have a home someday, and I want to retire in a few years without debts. Additionally, my house is fully paid off and I am planning on leaving it to her through a living trust. So, am I the asshole for selling the house instead of passing it down to my daughter? AITA for snapping at my husband in front of his family, and revealing that he hasn't helped me like he claims. Hi everyone. For my whole life, I 30F have had a lot of anxiety when it comes to driving. It has never been too much of a problem, as I live in a city and I can walk wherever I need to go. I have been married to my husband, Stan 32M, for 3 years, together for 6. Throughout our relationship, he has tried to help me learn how to drive. The problem is, Stan is not a very good teacher. AMD gets very impatient and angry every time we try. We go to the parking lot of an abandoned warehouse sometimes. It's huge. Anyway, if I make one small mistake, for example, if I don't check my mirrors for a long enough time, Stan yells at me. I would already be nervous at the wheel, but with all the yelling, it would cause me to break down and cry. I have a brother, Paul 33M, who I hang out with typically once a week. A few months ago, I was talking to Paul about how I wanted to learn how to drive, but I'm very nervous about it. He offered to help teach me when we hang out. Paul's husband, Chris, also was willing to help me out, and they actually made me feel so much more at ease behind the wheel. I thought I was bad at driving, but it turns out, I was just anxious. Another factor that made me want to learn, besides feeling like I need to do this, is that Stan has told me that he won't have a child with me until I get my license, which I definitely understand. 2 weeks ago, on my day off from work, Paul and Chris took me to the DMV and I finally got my license. I also bought a used car a few days ago from money that I've been saving up for years. I'm so happy and I have has the support from my brother and his husband. I thought Stan would be mad that I did all of this behind his back, and he was somewhat disappointed that I didn't want his help. I love him so much, but honestly he wasn't the right teacher for me. Anyway, on Sunday, Stan and I both had off from work and he told me he had a surprise for me. He took me to his parents' house, where they had a celebration for me. Basically like a little party congratulating me because I learned how to drive. Halfway through, my mother-in-law was giving a speech about how proud she was of me, but also proud of my husband, for all of THR support and lessons he was giving me. I could feel the anger rising in my chest. Stan had been telling everyone that he was the one who has been teaching me to drive. I snapped and told everyone, basically that the few times Stan tried to teach me, I always ended up crying because he would yell at me until he was blue in the face. That the only people who helped me and gave me confidence were Paul and Chris. And that, if anything, Stan made things worse for me. Which was true, but now, Stan won't talk to me. My Mill, Phil and Sil are on my side, but my 2 Bills and a couple of cousins are on Stan's side. I kind of do feel like an op. But at the same time, everything I said was true. AITA for snapping at my mom after she made a comment about my boobs. 34F, was always growing up told by my mom that I was lucky and people pay money to a boobs my size. Long story short, I haven't lived with my mom for years, and over the years I've gained and lost weight many times. Earlier today I was visiting her, and had taken a shower. I walk out of the bathroom as she's walking up to it. She makes a comment about how small and saggy my boobs have gotten. I said I'm not wearing a bra, obviously, and she asked why I'm not wearing one. Look her dead in the eye, wrapped in a towel. Hair dripping white. EF would I wear one in the shower? She took this as me getting angry and snapping at her. She asks why and I said cause she's asking ridiculous questions and making comments I don't want to hear about my body. Is it just me? Did I take her comment the wrong way? It seemed toxic to me. Am I the asshole? AITA for stopping all communication with my husband's sister after she told me off. I 44F have been married to my partner 55 meters for 7 years. His parents and sister 59F live overseas. My partner was estranged from his sister when we met, but I became friendly with her online and eventually we met up with her when we visited his parents' OS. She is also estranged from his parents and have been for a long time, 20 years, due to a disagreement between them and her partner 60 meters. Sister was close to her Andy, my Mill's younger sister, who lived in the same country as my partner and I. Sister visited us in 2020 and spent time with Andy, who was unwell. Later that year Andy passed away. I posted a photo of her Andy on social media shortly after her death saying that I missed her. Sister messaged me and told me to take the photo down as I had no right to post it as it was a photo she took. I didn't realize at the time that it was her photo, as we had been sending photos back and forth during her visit. I said okay, took the post down, and then blocked her on social media, left our group chat, and stopped texting her completely. When we visited her country again when visiting parents, who I get along with, I said to my partner that he was welcome to meet her, but I wouldn't be joining them. She decided at the last minute to back out of their arranged meeting. Background: sister is a difficult person to be around. My partner had warned me when we started talking. When we met up OS, we had agreed that I would bring her something from our country in exchange for her buying dinner. She accepted the gift, but then when the time came to pay the bill, asked to split it. When we met again the following few times in a different country, my partner and I paid for all the meals. She never offered to even pay her share. When she visited our country, she asked to stay with us, and again we had to pay for all the meals. She bought coffee once. She also refused to be in touch with her parents despite their repeatedly contacting her over the years, constantly complaining about how awful they were to her. However, her parents have been unwell and they have now all reconciled, and sister and her partner are now supporting them through a difficult time. My partner and I are very far away OS, and it is a relief that parents are getting help. Recently we were all present on a family video call. Even though sister and I didn't really speak to each other directly, I still do not text her directly or interact with her in any way, nor do I wish to. I don't have an issue with my partner being in touch with her or meeting her. I just don't want to be part of the relationship. I do worry about if and when anything happens to my partner, and if his sister is the only surviving member of his family, but I will cross that bridge when I get there. AITA for not wanting to interact with her now or in the future. Added it was really the last straw with regards to our Andy, who was very unwell for a long time before passing away. Sister would complain that we weren't visiting her enough. It was COVID and hospitals were restricting numbers, and Auntie wanted to see her kids and grandkids, not us. And when we visited Auntie the few times we could, sister wanted us to video call her so she could speak with Auntie. We only had an hour with Auntie each time, and did ask our Auntie if she wanted to video call sister, But her auntie didn't want to, because she wanted to spend time with us. Basically sister saw me as the newest member of family and that she should get more priority with auntie. I don't really view relationships in this sort of hierarchy, so was really over this ownership mentality. AITA for taking back my offer to help my son with housing. My son and his family are struggling. It's hard out there, I know. He came to me to see if I could help him with rent for a few months. I said that I would, and I did. I gave him $2,000. That was 2/3 of his rent for 2 months. It was a gift. I didn't expect it back. I thought about my granddaughter growing up in that little apartment and I started looking around without talking to him first. That was 100% my own fault. I found a townhouse for a reasonable price. If I put down a huge down payment, then I could let my son and his family move in there and it would only cost $850 a month for the mortgage and property taxes. It was close to my granddaughter's school and only 5 blocks from their current apartment. I took my son and daughter-in-law to see it and told them about my idea. They could live there and get a much better home for their family for just a little over half their current rent. That would give them an opportunity to save up, pay down bills, whatever you know. They said that it was a very generous gift. I corrected them. I was buying the house by taking money from my retirement account. I would need it back. They got really mad that they would be paying a mortgage and not getting equity in the property. It has devolved into a big fight. I no longer wish to participate and so I told the agent to let it go. My agent called me because my son had asked her to take him to see it again and she was confused because I had said I was no longer interested. It was already pending for another buyer. Now my son is upset with me for taking away a house with a yard from his daughter. It seems like what I have done something wrong. AITA for telling all my family that if I'm babysitting there are no rules. My family tends to stick me F18 with my nieces and nephews when we get together. I am also the go-to for babysitting. I do not get paid for this because since my siblings watched me when I was little I owe them. I don't really mind. I love all the kids and they are well behaved and polite. With me at least because I don't put up with their shit. I established dominance early with all of them. I also have no shits to give when it comes to the rules regarding watching them. I would never allow them to get hurt or anything. I just won't follow a huge list of rules. If you want your kid to eat vegan, then you better bring a vegan meal for them. Otherwise they get pizza or Dino nuggets or hot dogs. If they aren't allowed to watch woke movies or TV, then it's up to you to provide a TV and media because I'm putting on Frozen or something. My parents keep telling me that I have to follow the rules when I'm babysitting. I just keep asking why. What's the worst anyone can do to me? Take away my free babysitting? Oh poor me. We are in Jasper right now and it's been hot as balls. So I took the kiddos cliff jumping at Horseshoe Lake. I brought them back wet and filthy. Everyone told me that I was being a shit babysitter. I offered a full refund. Then I went and got a beer with some friends I made at the lake. I have a full scholarship. When I turned 18 I also got a small inheritance. It's enough that I won't have to work for spending money during my university years and put a down payment on a house. I'll probably leave it though. I literally do not need financial help from my family, so they have no hold over me. My sibling and I all got the exact same inheritance, except I was only 3 when my grandmother passed away. So it's been collecting compound interest for almost 20 years. My trust fund is about 4 times what my siblings each got. My family thinks I'm being an entitled ass, but they also won't pay me. I am more than willing to follow any rule I am paid to follow. AITA for telling my best friend I don't want to hear about her shitty boyfriend anymore. Hi Reddit. I am feeling really bad about this and need advice. I have 23 have been friends with my BFF Kayla since we were 11. She is awesome and has supported me through some really tough times, and I have been there for her through a lot of shit too. We have never fallen out, and we always supported each other. Until now. Kayla has been with her boyfriend James for just over 2 years now. I liked him at first, he was good for her. He made her happy, so I was happy. But for the last year or so, every time I have seen or chatted to Kayla, all she has done is complain about him. Some of the stuff she has told me about him is super gross, and I have lost all respect for him, and in turn, I have started losing respect for her. She has also changed a lot since being with him. She used to want to travel the world, explore and experience new things. Now she never leaves her house and wants to be a stay-at-home mother by the time she's 25. It makes me sad to see she has lost her sparkle. It all came to a head when we went for dinner for my birthday. She spent the whole night complaining about James, as always, telling me way too much personal stuff about him, as always, and just generally moaning. It was after we had finished our meal when I finally snapped and said I don't want to hear any more about her shitty boyfriend, because everything I advise her to do she just ignores and I have nothing left to say to her. I told her she should dump him if she hates him so much, And if she isn't going to dump him, then to quit bitching about him all the time, because I didn't want to hear it anymore. I had quite a few glasses of wine and was just feeling super bummed because she made my whole birthday dinner about her and her stupid boyfriend. This was 5 days ago and she hasn't spoken to me since. I messaged her the next morning apologizing and asked her if we could meet up to talk about it, but she hasn't responded. So Reddit, am I the asshole? Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I can see you're all very divided about if I'm the asshole or not, and I get why. I have accepted that I am the asshole for going nuclear when drunk, and I know I should have spoken to her in a mature and calm manner way earlier than I did. She shouldn't have ruined my birthday dinner, but she is struggling. She didn't deserve to be spoken to like that. I have decided to write her a letter apologizing for the way I spoke to her. I am going to write very nicely that I still stand by what I said, and that I love her, but hearing her complain repeatedly about the same issue without taking advice is very draining. I'm going to tell her I want to still be friends and that I don't want this to ruin our friendship. I will also recommend she goes back to therapy. She had a therapist in high school but ghosted her. If she then reads my letter and decides to end the friendship, then that is up to her and I will be sad. But everything happens for a reason, right? AITA. For telling my dad's wife his lies are not my fault and she shouldn't blame me for him saying she would be my new mom. I 17 meters was forced to go to therapy with my dad and his wife Haley 3 months ago, and as of our session on Thursday I am in pretty deep shit and want to know if I'm wrong. Timeline: my mom died when I was 7. This was in September 2014. Dad and Haley met in December 2014. They started dating in January 2015. I met Haley in March 2015 at my 8th birthday party. Haley moved in with us in May of 2015. Dad and Haley got married in July of 2015. Haley always wanted to be a mom. I have heard her say it a million times. She can't have biological kids. I believe she's actually sterile and not just infertile, so like no chance. Dad knew she wanted kids. He wanted to marry again and he wanted to have someone else take over raising me. But my dad never wanted more kids. I think Haley was a great option in his eyes, but he knew I wouldn't be okay with a new mom, that I wouldn't want to call someone else my mom. So he lied to her about it and said I would want that she'd be my new mom, but rushed the marriage so she wouldn't realize the truth. I don't accept Haley as my new mom. She has tried and I know most of it is genuinely her trying to be a good mom, but I have a mom. She's dead. She's still my mom. I told Haley this. She ignored me and continued on like I said nothing. I spoke to Dad and saw that he wasn't going to do anything. So Haley invested all her time and effort into me. Dad was really not around much. I was trying to be independent and not rely on Haley. There were times she told me she'd help me with homework, but I'd do it in school or I'd finish it while she was doing chores. I started doing chores without her. She would always try to help, but I would do things when I'd first wake up. I started asking friends' parents if they could drive me to school. I did everything to minimize what she was doing for me. Not everything was possible. She still did cooking and cleaning and taking me to doctor's appointments, but sometimes I would pretend not to be sick to avoid it. I don't know what led to therapy, but I was forced to go with them 3 months ago, and Haley was talking about her wishes to be a mom, how her and Dad's marriage wasn't what she thought it would be, how I'm not the son she thought she was getting, and how it annoys her that I'm so cold and distant with her. Then on Thursday, after some stuff was said last week about things Dad said, I told her Dad lied, that I never wanted a new mom and he knew it. She said I shouldn't say those things and I'm just making life unfair and more difficult, that I'm not doing what I should. I told her Dad's lies are not my fault and she shouldn't blame me for him saying she would be my new mom. I told her I had no part in that. Both Dad and Haley after therapy yelled at me and called me disrespectful. Haley told me I was ungrateful and should have been thrilled to have someone else want to mother me instead of ruining her chance at motherhood. AITA for telling my friends my bachelor party sucked. Hey everyone, I'm getting married in August, and my friends have known about it for 2 years. We had many discussions about my bachelor party, and I made it clear that I wanted a chill, low alcohol trip due to health issues. I suggested a quiet, scenic spot with activities like hiking and swimming. Despite my preferences, my friends insisted on planning a surprise trip. I set a few conditions: no excessive drinking, no sex workers, and no longer than 3 days because of my work commitments. 24M and my friends planned the trip secretly, and I didn't know anything about it until we left. They ended up planning a 5-day trip to a city known for its nightlife, Dublin, which I hate. Despite expressing my wishes clearly, they booked an apartment in the city center, surrounded by bars and strip clubs. I was disappointed but tried to make the best of it during the day. Ironically, nobody got to enjoy the nightlife because of poor planning, which added to the confusion. The trip did include one good day in nature, but overall, I was unhappy and felt like my preferences were ignored. I ended up really sad when I got back, feeling like they planned a trip for themselves, not for me. On top of that, We spent most of the trip visiting museums, which I don't really enjoy. Jay also suggested going to a strip club, which isn't my vibe, so I refused. I appreciate the effort my friends put into organizing the trip, but it felt like we were doing things Jay enjoys. He loves Dublin rather than what I would have liked. It was supposed to be my bachelor party trip, but it felt more like a regular weekend trip with friends. I'm back home now, feeling frustrated and disappointed. I don't want to come off as ungrateful because I see the effort they made, but I can't shake the feeling that my preferences were overlooked. So, AITA for telling them the trip sucked despite their efforts? And what's the best way to express my feelings to my friends without sounding ungrateful? AITA for telling my husband taking the kids for the day isn't help. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2 young kids. My husband works, sometimes long. I'm usually in charge of the day-to-day routine, schedules, activities, cooking meals, etc. It works out for us. He is taking this week off, and decided he would take the kids for today all day. He told me I deserve a day to relax as this week is our baka for the summer. I ran some errands, and while out I spoke with my husband briefly about dinner. He asked if I would be home for dinner, to which I replied yes. When I got home, his first question was, what are we doing for dinner? And I told him I assumed he would have already figured that out, seeing as it's getting close to bedtime for the kids. He said there was no food in the house and would go out to the store to grab groceries. At this point it's getting late, so I told him to just order food. He did begrudgingly and asked why I was so irritated and why I couldn't just do it. He said he helped all day with the kids. When I told him it's not help, he's their dad and it's part of his job, he lost it and told me I'm being an ass. Am I wrong for saying that? Am I the asshole? AITA for telling my husband that I don't want his brother living in our house. So in the past month or so my brother-in-law has been having some delusions because of a specific drug. He was living with his dad and 2 sisters who both have families living there. There was a situation that was happening with him and his sister's husband. My husband is the one they call whenever there is something happening in the family so he can fix it. One specific day there was something really bad that happened, and without talking to me he brought him here. He stayed for about a week supposedly without having the drug. After about a week he took off with his friends and never came back and left his stuff here. He ended up going to his dad's house again and didn't want to come here because we have rules, no drugs. So at his dad's house they called the cops because he started tripping out there. Forgot to mention that they had called the cops on him 3 times previously because of the crazy stuff that was happening. The cops told him that he was either going to go to jail or he had to find somewhere else to go. He decided to go to his mom's house and was there for about a week. We went to go drop off our generator at his mom's house and the rest of his stuff that he left here. He decided that he wanted to come back to our house and my husband said that it was fine. Well, yesterday Sunday morning he started doing the same stuff that he was doing at his dad's house because he has been doing the drug in the room. I told my husband that I didn't want him here because I didn't feel comfortable. My husband started flipping it on me and making me feel bad that I even said anything at all. So am I the asshole? AITA for telling my husband to stop eating like has never seen food before. I'll try to make this short, but don't judge just off the title. I 29F went out for dinner with husband 28 meters last night. Nothing fancy, just a chain sports bar, and it being a Friday, the place was packed. We sit, place our order, and we're catching up on the day. Everything is going fine. When the waitress brought out our appetizer, my husband grabs about 4 decent-sized tortilla chips and scoops an actual mountain of spinach dip with them and shoved the whole thing in his mouth. And when I say shove it I mean shoved his fingers in his mouth with the food. By the time I'd had 3 chips with some dip, the entire rest of the appetizer was gone, so I was already irked and embarrassed because of course people were staring at us. I said as much to him, and when he said he didn't see what he was doing wrong, I told him, you're acting like you've never seen food before, it's embarrassing. He didn't say another word to me after that, and has barely spoke to me today either. I don't think I'm the asshole for telling him I was embarrassed by how he was eating and annoyed that most of the appetizer was eaten by him, but I may have taken it too far with the last comment. For further context, no, this isn't the first time this has happened. I've told him multiple times it's embarrassing when he does this and asked him why, so I can try to help or at least understand a bit better. It's only at this specific Jane, and his answer always is either I'd or that he really loves the spinach dip they have. He also does this at home, but I don't really care when he's at home, because I'm not going to dictate how he acts in the privacy of our house. Also to note, because I'm sure people may ask, no, he did not grow up in a food insecure household. They weren't rich but not struggling that much, and neither are we struggling now. No, there is no history with an eating disorder either in him or his family. With all that said, AITA added, because people keep asking the same questions, so just for clarity, 1, yes, I have had this same conversation before with him in much nicer ways and usually in private. He actively knows I hate when he eats like that. 2, yes, he eats like like this at home but never went. There are people over and not when we go to other people's homes. I don't give him shit over it because I'm not gonna police what he does when he's in private. 3. No, I'm not going to divorce him over this. I know in my head this is one of very few things we argue about. Is it annoying? Yes. But it's a wild take to tell me to divorce my husband over it. 4. We continue to go to this place because it's a cheap, convenient option for when he has a super late shift, gets out at 11 or later because it is 5 minutes from our house and is one of the few places open at that time. 5. No, my husband is not in the military. AITA for telling my it's weird they expect me to be invested in stuff that happened when I was a literal infant. 19F was a very big surprise and late arrival to my family. My dad had 5 kids before me. Mom had 4. Dad's oldest was from his first marriage. He was divorced and married my mom when his ex-wife died. Their daughter was 5, I think. There was a big fight between my parents and his ex's family, because they didn't acknowledge my mom as a family member of his oldest. They were very clear mom wasn't ever going to be my half-sister's mom. My parents hated that and attempted to sever contact, but I guess her grandparents took them to court and they got to see her a few times a year, though I think it was just her and not the rest of the family. My parents had my 4 older siblings together and they remember our half-sister well. I was born when my half-sister was 17, and when she turned 18 she moved out and chose to live with someone in her maternal family. Apparently there was an incident where her grandparents and some of her mom's siblings gloated that my parents failed to make her a part of our family, and said my mom never deserved to be a part of raising her, and my siblings and I would never be her family. My dad said they actually said my siblings and I shouldn't exist. I don't know though. I think he said that to make the whole thing worse because he sometimes forgets that detail. But there was a choice given to his daughter, us or them. She chose them. I don't remember her. Never really met her unless you count 5-month-old me. My siblings all remember her. My family always expected her to come back to us. My siblings reached out to her over the years and got rejected. My dad found out he was a grandfather and cried when he realized he'd never meet her kids. They have always told me about her, about the situation. They vent and bring it up a lot. I always let them. But for about 3 years now they have tried to bring me into the conversation and I have nothing to say. This woman is a stranger to me and it doesn't sound like that will ever change. I'm okay with that. Yesterday my family and I were having a birthday lunch for one of my siblings. The topic of dad's daughter and her family came up. I was teased for never saying anything, then asked why I never seem to care. I told them it's weird that they expect me to be invested in stuff that happened when I was a literal infant. My family told me that it was an unfair take and I should be kinder when I know they're hurting and missing her. AITA for telling my landlords I don't want to maintain their pool. My landlords recently moved out and are planning on renting out their apartment in the future. They didn't even tell me until the day of that they were moving out. They then messaged me saying that they wanted to come back and have a discussion about pool management. I told them I didn't want to be responsible for managing it because I'm paranoid that something could happen and then I would be held responsible for their pool and I don't have the funds to even fix it if something were to happen. I'm also not home every day and I just don't want to take on that responsibility. They got upset saying all I would have to do is flip a switch on and off every day and then put chlorine in once a week. I also don't even know where they go to buy the chlorine and I'm already struggling to keep up with my bills. I don't want to add extra gas money to go get chlorine and then have to send them a receipt and wait to get reimbursed for the chlorine gas. This really feels like a full-time job that I didn't ask for nor is it part of my lease. AITA for not wanting to take care of their pool after they moved out. AITA for telling my parents how I felt about their gift. I 16F recently turned 16. When I was 13, I got my first phone, which cost $100. I had this phone for about 1.5 years, before I broke it a few days before I started high school. Since it was so close to the first day of school, my mom gave me 3 options: wait a few weeks for it to get fixed, wait for an upgrade that I wanted, or get a new phone immediately no matter what model. I choose the latter one, and the only thing that was available at the store we went to cost $300. My mom was hesitant at first, but since I was starting high school, she told me she would buy it, but I might get upgraded later on in high school. Fast forward to my birthday and I haven't had the phone for more than 1 year. My parents handed me a gift, which they said was the most expensive one they had bought me. When I opened it, it was a brand new phone, even more expensive than the one I had at the moment. My reaction was a mix of happiness and why. Something significant to add here is that we've been having a bit of financial trouble recently, and when my birthday started coming up, I told my parents that I wished to keep the $300 phone since it was still technically brand new and that getting a new phone seemed like a waste of money. My parents noticed my reaction but didn't say anything, and we kept going with the party. After it was over, They asked me if something was wrong with the gift. I told them that nothing was really wrong with the gift and that I appreciated it, but it just seemed like a waste of money, especially due to the situation we were in at the moment. My dad got mad and said I was being ungrateful, and my mom agreed. I replied saying that I didn't mean to come off as rude or ungrateful, but surely if we were having financial trouble, wouldn't buying me a new phone when the one I had still worked be a waste of money? As of right now, we aren't talking to each other. AITA for telling my sister that her in-laws can't come to Thanksgiving at my house, where my mom will meet my fiance's parents for the first time. My fiancé 33M and I 31F are really close. With my immediate family, my sister and my mom, we visit them often across the country, take vacations together, etc. My sister's in-laws are also very present. We've spent lots of holidays with them, vacationed together as a group, etc. Since my sister had her first kid a year and a half ago, we've seen them all even more often than usual. All the while, my fiance's parents and mine have yet to actually meet. They live far away from each other and varying attitudes about COVID precautions made it impractical for us to coordinate a meeting over the last several years. They were actually supposed to meet last Christmas, but then we actually got COVID and had to cancel. Fast forward to now, we had the idea to invite our parents and siblings and their partners' kids to our place, a plane ride away for everyone for Thanksgiving. We're running out of chances to get everyone together before our wedding next spring, so it seems like as good an opportunity as any. Today my sister asked me if her in-laws could come, and I told her that since it's the first time our parents are meeting, we don't really think it would be appropriate, so no. I tried to explain it clearly and honestly, but she got angry with me and said holidays are supposed to be inclusive, and if we're not going to invite her in-laws, then maybe she and her husband and kid will just stay home and spend the holiday with them instead. AITA for feeling that this particular Thanksgiving plan should be just our nuclear families. AITA for telling my son to take the best cupcake when we were at a family dinner. I 33M have a son 3M with my wife 32F. We were at her family's house for a family dinner. For dessert, my wife's mother brought out some cupcakes and they had Cookie Monster faces on the top. She passed the tray of cupcakes to me and I brought my son over, who was sitting beside me. I held the tray out for him and told him to take the best cupcake, just to teach him to always take the best whenever possible. He was struggling to find the best, but I just kept encouraging him to take the best cupcake. Later on in the evening, my wife told me that I was being rude with the cupcake thing. She said that it came across as greedy, selfish and a bit offensive to want to take the best cupcake, and that I should have assumed that all the cupcakes were equally good, and to just take any cupcake and pass the tray along, instead of being overly concerned with taking the best from the hosts. AITA for trying to get my son to take the best. AITA for telling my stepmother she can't bring her own wine to my wedding. I 29F am getting married in a few months. A few days ago my stepmom asked what alcohol would be at the wedding, and I shared that we're doing an open bar with signature cocktails, beer, wine, and liquor. She asked what kind of wine would be there, and I said I wasn't familiar with the type, but it would be a house red and white. She said she and my dad and our family friends are very particular about the type of Chardonnay they like, and I told her I plan to surprise my dad, who contributed a generous amount to the wedding by selecting a nice bottle or two of Chardonnay from their specialty wine menu to have just for them. She asked if there would be enough for her friends, and I said that the bottles were about $80 each, so I was only going to get two. Not enough for many people. There is no cheaper Chardonnay option on their menu. All of their specialty wine is pretty expensive. She then asked if she could bring their own. I told her I would have no idea if she just stuck some in her purse, but she said she was thinking about bringing a cooler with a few bottles. I told her that it was a pretty nice venue and she'd feel uncomfortable doing so. Would she do this for my cousin's wedding, which was super nice, we went to a few months ago? She totally came unglued and stomped off. I was totally calm throughout and really think I was as calm as I typed out here. That said, what she said emo really reads to me that she thinks my wedding is going to be cheap and her friends are very well off and won't want to drink the crap wine we're serving. And just for context, this is going to be about a $65,000 wedding, so definitely not cheaping out here. My dad asked me the same question a few weeks ago and I gave him the same answer, and he was like, okay cool NP. He and my brother didn't hear this conversation but think I didn't need to say basically that she wouldn't do it at my cousin's wedding. Why would she do it at mine? AITA added I didn't mention it in the post, but as many comments have called out, we are not allowed to bring in outside alcohol to the venue. Our venue must provide and serve all alcohol during the wedding. When she asked if they could bring their own wine, I just said the venue wouldn't allow it. I didn't explain the legality around it though. AITA for telling my uncle that the only reason we're speaking in his language is because he doesn't know mine. My parents immigrated to the US before any of my siblings or I was born, but all of their family stayed behind in their home country, Vietnam. I grew up learning Vietnamese and speaking it at home, to the point that I've been told by people in Vietnam that my pronunciation is pretty much indistinguishable from a fully native speaker, although my vocabulary is definitely not the best since English is my main language in the vast majority of day-to-day stuff. I recently went on a family trip back to Vietnam to visit extended family. I had graduated college since the last time I visited, so my uncle asked me what I majored in aerospace engineering. I don't know how to say that in Vietnamese and he knows pretty much zero English. So I said that I didn't know what it was called and then kinda described it. He made a guess based off what I described and I don't really know what his guess meant and I just said I think. So, and then he made a snarky comment about how anyone whose parents are both native Vietnamese speakers should also be fully fluent in it. Later at some point, I had to go to the doctor for some medical issue and my uncle was there in addition to my parents. I was able to describe all my symptoms and stuff and the doctor prescribed me a couple medications. But afterwards I asked my parents to explain what each medication was for since I didn't fully understand. My uncle made another comment about how I clearly don't use Vietnamese enough at home and should use it more, and then I kinda snapped and said that I was good enough at it for my own satisfaction. He smirked at that and was like, it's your native language, you should be better, and then I replied with something along the lines of, no, my native language is English. The only reason we're conversing in Vietnamese right now is because that's the only language you know. After that it was kinda weird. We usually don't interact all that much, but I've been steering clear of him because it still annoyed me, but I'd if my response was too mean. AITA for telling my vegan sister that I will not remodel her home anymore if she doesn't serve me meat. My sister bought a home and it needs a lot of work. I told her that I would be willing to do it if she provided food and the materials. I am anemic and fainted a lot as a child. Almost all of my meals have some type of meat in them or are very heavy on protein. This is the problem. The meals my sister have been serving have left me hungry and lightheaded. The work is labor intensive and me working in the morning to late afternoon usually makes me feel awful by the end of the day. I brought my own food one day and it wasn't an issue, so I asked she to make heavier meals that have more protein in them. It hasn't been working. Yesterday I fainted and after I informed her that I need her to make meals with meat in them or I will not be remodeling things anymore. She thinks I am a huge jerk for asking. This won her and I am standing firm on this. I am also not willing to bring my own food since I am going her a huge favor already to remodeled her home. AITA for wanting my money back. Last night our friend group 15 ppl went out to dinner. The dinner was a preset $55 a head meal with entrees, a choice of 4 curries, 3 meat and 1 vegan, and dessert. Unfortunately I got a severe migraine the afternoon of the dinner and couldn't attend. My friends said that because the cancellation was late notice I still needed to pay $55. However, they told me they had 8 tubs of leftovers mix of all curries and would put a few aside for me. I agreed to still pay and pick up the leftovers the next day. When I went to pick up the food today I was shocked to see that all that was put aside for me were 2 tubs of the vegan curry. I have been told by friends that the other curries had been given to other people who were at the dinner. Am I the asshole for wanting my money back? AITA for wanting nothing to do with my autistic brother. I 24 meters have an autistic older brother 26 meters. Throughout my entire childhood he has caused me nothing but misery. There were multiple occasions throughout elementary school where I was pulled out of class recess to be reprimanded by a teacher and basically forced to forgive him even though I did nothing wrong. He broke one of my toys at home and was now throwing a temper tantrum in class because I was upset that he broke my toy. Another time I was pulled out of class by one of his spec head teachers because my mother had accidentally switched our sweaters after washing them. His sweater was bigger and mine was smaller. I was wearing his and he was wearing mine. I then had to take off my sweater in front of my class and the special ed teacher said, "Don't do that," even though it wasn't my fault. My extended family members, cousins, aunts, uncles also treat me differently and look at me a certain way, based off nothing other than the fact that my brother is autistic, overly nice to me, infantilize me, etc. To the point where I feel like I have to prove to them that I'm not like him, that I'm not autistic. My mother lets him get away with everything and anything due to his autism. She would always turn to my autistic brother whenever I had something to say that challenged her and asks, "Am I being unfair?" Because he always sides with her, to which he would reply with, "No," and then she would say, "Thank you," as if my needs as a child were of no concern to her. Whenever I got sick and couldn't go to school she would get mad and tell me to go to the hospital even though I knew I just needed to stay home for a few days. I was a very good student and would not skip class just because I felt like it. She would refuse to call the school whenever I was sick, but would always call the school whenever my brother got sick. She also expects me to take care of him when she dies. My brother is autistic but high functioning. He can dress himself, warm up food for himself, clean himself, can navigate public transit well, etc. He has a very hard time controlling his emotions and interacting with other people since he is extremely aggressive and does not know how to talk to strangers in a civil manner. He has been unemployed for several years and my mother does not expect him to find a job anytime soon. I am grateful for my mother giving me shelter, food, and clothes throughout my entire life, but I still feel like I was emotionally abandoned as a child. I understand that my brother did not choose to be born this way, but he has simply never been a good person, let alone a good brother, to me. I hate him. I will not be taking care of him when my mother and father pass away. I am going to live my own life and forget about him. Am I the asshole? AITA. I left a wheelchair-bound individual in the frozen section at the supermarket for 20-30 minutes. Am I the asshole? I'm a care worker that cares for many types of individuals with disabilities. This includes those who require wheelchairs and other modes of transportation to get around easier. I had this one particular client who often gives me trouble as in the rude harsh type who I was requested to care for the day. The individual I was caring for is also 67 years old. I went to her house to come collect her as she wanted to go do her weekly shop. The moment I got there she started making passive-aggressive comments such as, "So, you did decide to come then? And also, could you have taken any longer?" Be it mind I arrived on the set time for 5:30 a.m. I looked past these comments as being a career means that you will encounter a few individuals who potentially have certain struggles and challenges that make their mood not the best, which is understandable. We got to the supermarket at 6:25 a.m. and instantly she was making rude comments about me and personal life. She said that my 5-year-old son was an uneducated little bugger and that I drive like a drunk teenager. The comment about my son was the one that really got to me, as he has autism and is bullied quite often for it. To top it off, also he has quite severe dermatitis which puts him in almost constant pain. But once again, I tried to put this aside and get the job done. Finally, we was in the supermarket. I was buying the things that she requested, and whilst pushing her around she kept on intentionally barges my arm and chest. I asked her to stop politely and she downright ignored me. Now, we was at the frozen produce section picking out some chicken and peas for her afternoon dinner. And that's when I couldn't take it anymore. She stared me directly in the eyes and smiled. She then said, "At this rate, we keep taking this long little tomato boy isn't gonna have his dinner." This made me extremely and overwhelming upset. Due to the dermatitis, my son's face is almost constantly swollen and red. In a moment that went against my profession, I left her near the back of the freezers where it was most cold whilst I did the rest of the shop in peace. I returned after around 20-30 minutes and she was shaking in terror to what I had done. She didn't speak for the rest of the day. I did not apologize. Am I the asshole? AITA. Over my baby name suggestions. I 28F am 8 months pregnant with my wife, E26F, and I's first child. A little background. My family has a tradition where the eldest daughters have an alternating pattern of 2 letters that begin their first name. For example, Vivian Tessa Violatori. My wife's family has a tradition that the eldest girl's name ends with a certain 4 letters. We'll go with Ella for an example. My wife has been vetoing my name suggestions left and right. For the entire 4 months we've known that we're having a girl. I've suggested everything I can think of from my tradition, with my wife saying no to every one of them except one she knows I absolutely despise, before redirecting me to names from her own family's tradition. The issue is there are no names between our 2 traditions that would actually work, with a very limited number of names actually being names in the first place. What we have to work with are names that look like amalgamations of 2 names. Think of something on the lines of Veronicella. It's gotten to where I tried to suggest a name last week and she cut me off on the first syllable and suggested names from her own tradition instead. My suggestions are not outrageous either. They're very normal names. Maybe a few of them a bit out there, but nothing too unusual. And I'm not unreasonable. I understand that we'll honor both traditions, but both cannot fit in the first name together without being some amalgamation of a normal name with her family's tradition stuck on at the end. I've tried suggesting having one of our traditions be the middle name and she's turned that down and told me to stick to my own family's tradition and she'll stick to hers. 2 days ago, I suggested a name I had been holding off on suggesting because I really liked it, and I knew it would hurt to have it vetoed like I knew she would, since I've liked that name since I was a kid. She told me that the name was disgusting and awful, and she would never agree to it over her dead body. She then went off on me, yelling at me that she regrets going through everything to have a baby with me because, in her own words, "You're becoming a real bitch about these stupid baby names. I should name the baby alone anyway, since you're the one who carried it, to make the marriages even." She then just stopped talking to me and left for her brother's house over an hour away. I tried to text her this morning once I was certain we'd both have calmed down, asking why I wasn't allowed to have an opinion on our daughter's name, but she didn't read or respond to it. We have a deadline of 4 weeks until our daughter comes out. and she won't even talk to me at all. Our mutual friend group doesn't want to touch the discussion with a 10-foot pole and say it's between me and my wife. So Reddit, AITA for wanting to have an opinion in our daughter's name. Or am I overstepping since I'm the one who's pregnant and she's not, and just let her get the name as her own decision? Edit for all those suggesting it. I've tried to suggest names outside of tradition that I like, but they've also been shot down. And the suggestion of breaking tradition has been met with, in her own words, "We have to follow tradition. That's just how it is. Don't be stupid." That's the dumbest suggestion yet. I'm willing to not do tradition names and even have a whole list of names that aren't of either naming tradition that I would happily pick from instead. But she has consistently vetoed every name on that list as well and told me to follow tradition. WIBTA for filling in a man-made pond against some neighbor's wishes. For the past several years, I've owned a property in a semi-rural area. It is part of an HOA with only 12 houses over 1,000 acres. So we don't get much in each other's way. There is a common area that abuts my property, and on it there is a pond that is fed via an irrigation headgate on a creek on my property and a cut that runs from it through my property. I've come to discover this pond is a real pain. One neighbor used to maintain it without making a fuss, but he died. So dealing with it fell to me, as the neighbor most affected by it. And it's a pain. People trespass to go fishing or having their dogs swim in it. People from outside have come to ice skate on it, totally not safe. It has silting problems. The headgate needs to be dug out every spring, sometimes multiple times. The cut clogs up and has to be cleared. Then a beaver took up residence and kept blocking the outflow culvert, causing a flood on neighboring farmers' land. He was rightly pissed and I got the brunt of it. I was clearing out beaver blockages several days a week. Nobody else in the HOA would help. I did some research and discovered that the water right for the headgate belonged to me alone and not the association. Whoops. There was no easement for the irrigation cut, and, cherry on the sundae, the pond is actually on my property and not common area. Had a survey done just to be sure. I also discovered it wasn't really a pond, it was a hole dug up to provide fill for our road, and the original developer just routed irrigation into the hole and called it a pond. But this explains why it is such a mess. A landowner a mile away is now digging out a proper pond and he has to pay a ton to dispose of the fill even though it is clean. I asked if it would help if he could put some of the fill in our pond and he offered to pay for the privilege. I have closed the headgate and started draining the pond. Some members of the HOA have been yelling at me that they like the pond just to look at as they drive out to the main road. So I said, okay, if you like it, pay up $10,000 a year for someone to deal with the nonsense. They refused. I said that in that case the pond is getting filled in and planted with native grass. Using the money from taking the fill, they call me a selfish asshole. Am I? WIBTA for having a vegetarian-only wedding? New to Reddit as I need opinions. My fiancé and I, both 30s, are getting married in a couple of months. We now need to finalize our menu choices for our guests. Now, we are vegetarian. In general, we are pretty relaxed vegetarians. If we go out, we totally don't mind if our friends' family choose meat or fish to eat. Same if we visit family. As long as there is a veggie option, then great. Now back to the wedding. On looking at the choices, and given it's our day, we thought it would be nice to have a fully vegetarian menu. My 32F parents are paying for the meal and have been absolutely stunned by this choice. They say it's disrespectful to people who aren't in the vegetarian culture, and also disrespectful to our own values in terms of ensuring our friends have a nice time. They say it's forcing our ethics on other people. My viewpoint is it is one meal only, on our day, where I'm sure it will be delicious whatever they're served. None of our friends have ever complained when coming to our house for vegetarian food, but my parents say it's different at a wedding because people expect luxury food, especially if they are traveling from abroad. Many are, and apparently this needs to include meat. I am honestly Natalie Imbruglia torn on this. Personally, I don't mind that much if our guests eat meat, but it is inconsistent with our own life choices and it is our day, so that could make it feel inauthentic. And I think the whole focus on meat thing is quite generational. My parents are in their 60s. My fiancé agrees with me, but the issue is, my parents are very kindly paying for the meal. WIBTA if I got everyone only vegetarian food? WIBTA for telling my parents they can't travel with us to our honeymoon even if they want to stay at a different resort. My partner and I are planning on going to either Cancun or Tulum, Mexico for our honeymoon in a few months. When we shared this with my parents, they asked if they could join us on our trip as they've never been to Mexico before and don't want to travel alone. They said they would travel on the same plane as us but stay at a different resort and promise to not bother us the whole time we're there. Knowing my dad, he will try and have us get together at least once during the trip. I feel bad for saying no, but I don't think it's a good idea for them to join us on our trip, and my partner agrees. If it was any other trip, then it would be fine, but not our honeymoon. They've brought this up a few times already, but we always try and change the subject. WIBTA if I ask an autistic person to stay away from my baby. For context, My 23F daughter 1 was born with a limb difference where one of her arms ends below her elbow. My pregnancy and birth was very traumatic and we were not sure if she would survive. She is doing very well now, thankfully. I have been on and off attending the same church ever since I was a child. Recently, an autistic woman 21 has started attending as well. We have a very welcoming community and the fact she is autistic does not bother me at all. However, she has on several occasions touched and rubbed my daughter's nub without asking permission or addressing anyone at all. She will do this for several minutes in silence, almost as if we can't see her doing it. She makes comments about my daughter growing up to have a miserable life having just one arm and will say how sorry she feels for her and me as her mother. I try to redirect her and say that my daughter will live a wonderful life and she will be no different than her or I and she will be able to do anything she wants. But this girl says that I am wrong and she will not and just repeats how miserable her life is going to be and how sorry she feels for us. Now I know, she can't help the things she says or does to an extent, but these interactions are devastating to me as a mother. As I know my daughter is different and will have difficulties, I just don't want this thrown in my face every Sunday. I have even stopped attending services because of this and it's affecting me because church is a big part of my life since having these huge life-changing events. Wibta if I ask her to please stay away from us, if she cannot stop saying these negative things and touching my daughter. Wibta if I asked my husband to stop smoking weed. It's summer break. My husband smokes weed. We just had a baby. It drives me nuts to no end for these reasons we don't communicate as well. He sleeps so deeply he doesn't hear if something is happening. I almost got seriously hurt and yelped and he heard nothing. What if there's an emergency with the baby? I don't feel like I can rely on him as much for taking care of the baby. It costs money we don't have that could be supporting our baby. He has crazy nightmares and withdrawals without it, but he refuses to talk to a doctor or psychiatrist. I'm not as attracted to him when he's smoking because I don't like the smell and I don't like the way it makes him not think things through and he's way more reactive emotionally. Wibta if I tell my aunt that she needs to replace my baking tools she threw away. Okay, so some context for this. I love to bake and last year I spent a pretty penny buying a set of baking utensils that I love. My aunt asked me if she could borrow them last week and I said okay, but that I would need them back by today because I planned on baking my friend baby shower cake. I went to her house this morning to get them only to find out that she threw away several of my utensils away because they broke. To be clear, the heads on some of my utensils pop off to be washed in a dishwasher since the handles were wooden. She thought they broke because of this and instead of calling to tell me she just threw them away. I'm going to go buy new ones today so I can bake the cake, but I want her to buy me the same brand of the ones that she threw away. Not the whole set, just the brushes and spatulas. It will only cost her like $20, $30 at most. So Wibta if I tell her that she needs to buy me new ones?